Thank you very much. You know, over the years, I've had and heard that song sung by others, and you know, honestly, it's not the same. This man just sings it in a way that nobody else can sing that particular song, and it's become so popular, like in some circles, the most popular song of its kind. And I just want to thank Lee. He's been with us from the beginning. Really talented, unique guy, and a good person with a great family. So thank you very much, Lee. We appreciate it very much. And a very special hello to North Carolina. We love North Carolina. I don't know if my boy told you, but Laura and Eric have two beautiful children. One of them happens to be named Carolina. So that's pretty good. That means you like the place pretty much, huh? So it's great. But it's also great to be back in this incredible state with so many proud American patriots who believe in faith and family, God and country. Thank you very much. We need more of that in this nation, don't we? We need more of that. It'd be a much different place right now, because right now it's not doing well. Right now we're a failing nation, but we will soon be a great nation again. Earlier today, I visited western North Carolina and witnessed the terrible devastation from Hurricane Helene. I was actually here about a week and a half ago, right after, but I didn't want to come into certain sections because I wanted to let them do their job. And our federal government, as you know, and FEMA's really let them down, especially in North Carolina. It's a shame. They spent a lot of money on having illegal people come into our country, migrants, you've heard about it, and there wasn't a lot of money for the people of North Carolina or a lot of the people from a lot of other states that were also devastated by that monster. That was a monster storm. But so many people have come together and done an incredible job, so many, including Franklin Graham, who's been amazing. To every family who has lost a loved one or a home, our hearts are with you, and we're praying for you. I mean, the homes are bad, but family members are really bad. That's a tough one. It's something you can never really, you can't shake that. But all I can do is say we love you and we're with you 100%. And on January 20th, if we win this election, I always like to say I always like to say if, and people say, oh, please say when. But you know, we have to understand that bad things can happen, but we're not going to let it happen. We're never going to let it happen again. We're doing really well. We're leading. I know nobody in this room gambles, but some of the gambling polls are really in there, like 65 to 35 or something like that. I heard one. But nobody here gambles. Does anybody in this room? No. No. Great Christians don't gamble, do they? Oh, no. So we're doing really well. I would say beyond our wildest expectations. And that's not only in polls. More particularly, it's in the votes that are being cast. They're coming in at levels that we've never seen. One of the things that's amazing is North Carolina, so it was devastated, and yet areas that were the worst areas, we just left one, as you know, and I met some of the greatest people, but they just set a record for votes cast thus far, and their homes are gone. I mean, it's an amazing thing. I figured maybe you'd get 50%, and they call it Trump country, and I'm very honored by that. But these are Trump people, and just think of that. Their homes are gone. They've gone through such hell, and it's as big a water, you know, that's as big a water storm, they say, as we've ever seen in this country. And they just set a record. They compared it to the two elections previous, and we have a substantial number more. Can you imagine that? I mean, those are great people. Thank you very much. I want to thank a very special man, Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson, for organizing this event. And of course, Candy, because without Candy, I don't know if Ben would be the same. I don't think so, actually. It's a special couple. But can I tell them the one quick little story? Well, you told me a couple of times, but, you know, Ben was very tough to beat, actually. He was getting up, and other people were falling in the wrong direction because he was in a primary with me, the original primary. And one day in a church, it was a Sunday morning, and he was doing well, really well. And in a church, he came over to me and he said, "You know you're going to win, don't you?" And I said, "What's this all about?" Because he's a tough competitor. I said, "What is this all about?" He said, "God has picked you to win." Can you believe that? Right? And you have no idea. He was so tough for him to say that. I said, this is really something. And he really was. He's something. People love him. And they loved him then, and they even love him more now. And he went to HUD, which is I must say, it's always mired in scandal. People, you know, you're giving out a lot of money, and there's a lot of bad things happen when you're giving out all that money. And Ben went 4 years, perfection. I don't know, has it ever happened before? Has it ever happened before? I wasn't surprised, but a lot of people were surprised. Anytime you get through that one for 4 years, you have to be one honest gentleman. But he ran it really great, and he's a special man, and he's done a special job today, and it's my honor to be here. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ben and Candy, very much. Appreciate it. That's some story, though, isn't it, Ben, huh, Candy? I love that story. I'd also like to thank somebody that's done unbelievable things, and especially in very hard times. I've seemed to, when I was president, and I would go to a lot of the sites, the tornadoes are vicious. They ask which are the worst, are the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the tsunamis? And I have a friend, that's what he does, he studies this. I said, so what's the worst? He actually said, tsunami. The ocean just lifts up and a lot of bad things happen, you know, in terms of the level, but they're all bad in their own way. But I've been with Franklin Graham through a lot of them, and we're very happy to have helped him out during the course of most of them, and maybe in particular this one. This was so sad to see, such a great part of our country, and so devastating. When you looked at the size of that storm, that hurricane, it covered the whole state of Florida practically. You know, normally you see a little trough through it or hitting one area, but you'd look at the map and you look at the whole state of Florida was covered in one form or another. And Franklin Graham just is a special person with a great family, and his father wasn't too bad either, right? You know, my father used to take me like to Yankee Stadium. He loved Billy Graham, and he would take me as a young guy. He'd take me to Yankee Stadium, and he thought Billy Graham was great. And I'll tell you what, Billy Graham's looking down, and he's very proud of his son and his family. I can tell you that without question. Pastor Paula White, I've known for a long time, and she is so unbelievable what she's done for the campaign. She's just organized everything. Everybody respects her. She'll call meetings and everybody shows up, even if it's 2 hours later, they'll get here. And she's just a very incredible woman. And what she's done with evangelicals, what she's done with actually people of all faiths, but it's just what she's done really has made a big difference. And we get 88% of the vote, and people would say, wow, that's not bad, 88%. And they said, how did you do that? And I said, would you please speak to Paula White? Because she knew what she was doing. And we have a team of pastors, ministers, and even rabbis where we are very, they like what I've done for Israel, I can tell you that. We have a lot of rabbis. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Where is Paula? Where is Paula? She was right behind me before. You know, she's probably working because she is. That's what she does. But Paul, she's here someplace. She's right back there. She's making phone calls, getting more people lined up for the vote. I'd rather have her do that than be here. But that's the kind of person she is. She's fantastic. And Scott Turner, who was in the administration. Scott, where's Scott? Come on, Scott. This guy, a great person, a great everything, great athlete, and a very fine man. And you really did something very special for the administration. We really appreciate it. And get ready. Get ready. Just keep yourself in good shape. We don't have to worry about his shape, I can tell you that. But we appreciate it, Scott. Thank you very much. And a beautiful speaker. Boy, he got up and he would talk to groups of people, and they were so jazzed up they could do anything. He was very special. And a person that's, I have to say, the most special. We have to say this, Ben, the most special of all, because he's my son, you know? I mean, you know, I'm saying, how can he be more special than Ben Carson? But Ben, do you mind if I say he's my son? Am I allowed to say just slightly more special? Oh, you're tied. Let's call it a tie, okay? But Eric has been amazing in business, and everything he's done has been so incredible. He has become a legend in the legal profession because he's the most subpoenaed human being in history. He's gotten more subpoenas than any human being in history. Every day, Congress, and this one and that one, deranged Jack Smith. We had people, the likes of which nobody, you talk about weaponization of government. What they've done is incredible. And he's cool as a cucumber. Yeah, Dad, we got another couple of subpoenas today. Where'd they come from? Congress, this one, that one. And crazy Nancy Pelosi would send them like it's cookies. She had subpoenas on the corner of her desk, and congressmen would just walk in and grab a subpoena, write it, and send it. And I'd say, here, Eric, handle it. He became very proficient. He's a great young man, and he really is very excited about today. Did he do a good job when he spoke? No, he's great. He's great. He's got a lot of talent, And also here is my daughter Tiffany and her husband Michael. And Tiffany is pregnant. She's going to have a baby. She's going to have a baby, and it's going to be I'm not allowed to say what the baby is going to be, am I? I don't know. I'm not going to put her on the spot. I'm not going to say it. I'm not taking a chance. I don't want to see her have a long face. Dad, you shouldn't have said that, Dad. But she's been, from day one, she was a great student, and she went to a fantastic law school, graduated number 1 in her class. Right? And we couldn't be happier. I mean, it's just never had a problem with her. I shouldn't say, we better knock on wood. Where's some wood around here? Oh. That's one piece of wood. Most of it's plastic. But she's been an amazing person, and her husband's doing a great job. And thank you, Michael, for the job you're doing. Appreciate it. Congratulations, sir. And Linda McMahon, who most of you know, she headed up small business for the government. Now, small business is giant business. When you add it all up, it's about as big as I think it's probably bigger than any bank in the world. And she was one of our great people in the administration, and a very, very successful woman. She was very generous, I know, with Franklin and with the work done here, where she was really very generous. And she's always generous. She's been generous to the campaign, but we're very proud of her. Linda, wherever you may be, where are you, Linda? Linda? Thank you, Linda. Thank you. An incredible woman. And a friend of mine also, Steve Witkoff, who's a very successful man. And he is, where is Whitcoff? He is somebody that's been also he wrote a big check for Franklin to take care of a place called North Carolina. And so we like him. Even if we didn't like him, we like him, right? Steve Whitcoff. Thank you, Steve, very much. And Peter Navarro, I heard he gave a great speech. And Peter took a lot of abuse. He talked about weaponization. And do I see my favorite person here? Will you please stand up? What's this all about? Stand up. Wow. Thank you, darling. Right from the beginning, right? Right from the beginning, from day one. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Elvira. Appreciate it. And thank you to every pastor, patriot, and faith leader here today. We have so many people. You know, this is the worst is when you introduce some, you're in trouble. Because I'm seeing 6, 7 people. I get a lot of people. Then I see a group of 2 over there. I'm in trouble, but let's get on with it. Do you mind? Let's get on. Because with your help, we're going to make America great again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. So I was introduced to church at a very early age, and I had a wonderful church actually in Jamaica, Queens, First Presbyterian Church. I don't know if you know it. It was built a long time ago, and it was great, but very early. And then ultimately on Sundays, my parents, Fred and Mary, would drive me into Manhattan to worship at Marble Collegiate Church, where Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, the author of one of the really big bestsellers, The Power of Positive Thinking, he was the head pastor. Great book. It was a great book then and a great book now. Power of Positive Thinking. A lot of people could use a little positive thinking, right? And he was an incredible speaker. My sister and I were both married there, and the funeral services for both of my parents, I mean, my mom and dad they took place in the main sanctuary of Marble Collegiate Church, and it was just always very special. I still remember the great sermons of Norman Vincent Peale, and he truly was one of the greatest speakers I've ever. First, he was a believer, but he was also a great speaker, an unbelievable man. I actually saw his last sermon, but when you left church, you were really disappointed that it was over. I mean, I have to say, we have a lot of pastors and ministers, but sometimes it's like, am I allowed to say that? It's like a Biden, you know? Sometimes. Not often, of course. But this man, and you know, he always preached in sort of modern times, a little bit in modern times. He'd bring it up. I remember so many of his sermons, but he talked about Alfred Sloan, who was the founder of General Motors, and how he grew up and how he had tremendous problems with alcohol, and he became a major alcoholic. And then, you know, Norman Vincent Peale would just say, and then one day he met God. And he was just the expression of this man. He used to stand at a podium, and he'd be like this, just like that. And he'd preach, and you really were, you know, you were disappointed when it was over. He'd tell you stories about God, about many things, about life. It was really stories about life and how it pertained to religion, and it was really amazing, and he was amazing, and a brilliant, just the enthusiasm he had. And I listened to him for, I would say, 20 years. And then one day, I went to church, Marble Collegiate, and he was now, I guess, in his 90s, and he was preaching, and you could see he was getting a little bit tired, and he stood, just like I said, right over here to the left of the podium, and he said, I can't do this anymore. That was it. And he just sat down. It was, I mean, we all understood. He was just, he was really, no, I mean, he was really, it was his last time at the podium, and the last time he preached. And it was an amazing moment, and everybody just stood up and applauded. It was sort of a beautiful thing to watch, actually. But to see him, because he was truly a very big name at the time and very respected. And the fact that he wrote this book that was such a big bestseller, it was a massive bestseller, still is, I think. But as I look back at my life's journey and events, I now recognize that it's been the hand of God leading me to where I am today. Thank you. And my faith took on new meaning on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, where I was knocked to the ground, essentially, by what seemed like a supernatural hand. And I would like to think that God saved me for a purpose, and that's to make our country greater than ever before. Thank you. Thank you very much. And that is something, you know, Eric is a great shooter. Great. If he were a golfer, he'd be like a +4. He's a great shooter. And so is Don. They're both great shooters. They know a lot about guns. In fact, I think I got the blessing of the NRA because of my sons. Early on, I remember I was running against a lot of people that had good gun credentials, and 2016, and the NRA, which was, you know, in its full bloom, actually. They even spent $35 million of the campaign, but I think they did it because of my sons, because I beat out a lot of very good people that believed in that whole world, a little different world, but that whole world, and because of Don and Eric. But when they both heard what had happened that day at Butler, they said, how far was it? And they said it was 130 yards, and they knew the weapon. And they said, I can't believe it, because Eric actually said a bad shooter would hit you every single time. And I didn't realize it to that extent. I made that right-hand turn, and I made it a little quickly, and that got me in a position where it just, not a good feeling, but much better than the alternative. Wasn't the best feeling. And it was a bloody sucker, I will tell you that. I didn't realize, but the doctor told me, he told me a couple of things. He said, you're the luckiest man I've ever seen. He said, I've been doing this for 25 years. And he said, sir, I'd like to suggest that you go out right now and buy a lottery ticket, because this is a good day. But Eric told me and Don told me that, you know, that I think they became more religious that day, because they said that was amazing that we could have survived something like that, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch away. So it's pretty amazing. And if we didn't make, thank you. And if we didn't make, thank you very much. If we didn't make the turn, that wouldn't have happened. And I made the turn to show a chart, which became my all-time favorite chart in the history of the world. Right? My all-time favorite. I sleep with that chart. I kiss that chart. But we're 15 days away from the most important election in the history of our country. And if you want to know what is at stake for Christians in this race, just listen to what Kamala Harris had to say last week. Because when two college students, religious college students, and very good people, everybody said what wonderful young men they were and are. At a campaign stop, she heard shouting from the background, "Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord." And Kamala Harris ridiculed them, mocked them, and told them they were, quote, "You're at the wrong rally. She basically said, "Get out," but I won't say that because people didn't hear that so much. But she said, "You're at the wrong rally." And that's really what she meant. That's really what she meant. She's very destructive to religion. She's very destructive to Christianity and very destructive to evangelicals and to the Catholic Church. And she is, let me put it this way, Ben, she is your worst nightmare. Much worse than Biden, and he wasn't so hot. But while Kamala says that people who believe in Jesus don't belong to her rallies, you have to remember that that's as loud as it can be. In fact, a lot of people said that would be disqualifying for her. That would be a disqualification. In our movement, we love Christians, we welcome believers, and we embrace followers of Jesus. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Boy, this is a lively group, Ben. This is a very lively group you've assembled. What's going on with Ben? This is something, Ben. But at Trump rallies, we don't tell Christians to get lost. We tell Christians to get out and vote. You don't have the choice of sitting out this election, because if Kamala Harris gets 4 more years, the radical left is not going to leave Christians alone. It's going to get worse and worse, and you're going to suffer greatly. They will come after Christians all over the country. Kamala Harris has vowed to abolish the filibuster, letting her pack the Supreme Court, and I even heard as many as 25 justices. The Supreme Court with Marxist radicals, with people that we don't want on the Supreme Court, to rewrite the Constitution and to overrule your values. I think one of the greatest things I've done is the Supreme Court, and also getting over 300 judges appointed throughout our land that have made a tremendous difference. Those 300 judges have made a tremendous difference. She'll flood our country with tens of millions more illegal aliens and make them all citizens, canceling out your voting power forever. Kamala will mandate that every public school in America must promote the idea that children can change their genders, allow men into girls' locker room, and also allow men to play in women's sports. Can you imagine that? Men and women's sports. And it's such a strong movement by, I believe, really a very, very small group of people. Because, you know, it's interesting. I haven't met one person that thinks that's a good idea. And yet it's like a movement. But I've never met anybody. Now, I don't know everybody, but I haven't met anybody that wants it. And even the young ladies that are afraid of what's happening. You saw the other day the volleyball player who was hit very hard on the head by a ball, a smash that, in fact, I saw this person, a person who transitioned, hit the ball. I mean, that ball was moving as fast as a ball can move. And she said, "I've never seen anything like it." Really whacked her. But some people were put out of commission just in volleyball, let alone other sports. But when you look at weightlifting, how about that one? Or you look at swimming records, track records, it's so demeaning to women. It's so ridiculous. It's so demeaning. But Kamala will force doctors and parents to allow sex changes and genital mutilation of minor children. That's what they do. She has it literally where sex change operations for people in detention when they were being held in detention. If they wanted a sex change operation, she said, yes, I approve it. I mean, who would do this? Who would do this? And you know, I'm talking about everything else, but I'm also talking, it's an extremely difficult operation and a very expensive operation. But who would do this, and who would want this? And between that, she was the head of the movement, Defund the Police. You have to understand, she's a radical left Marxist, and a lot of people want to know, what does that mean? She's a person so far left, like nobody's seen in the Senate in many, many years. But the main thing is, she's not a very bright person either. That's a really dangerous combination. Your religious liberty will be gone, your free speech will be gone, your Second Amendment will be gone, and parental rights will be gone forever. So I'm here tonight to deliver a simple message to Christians across America. It's time to stand up and save your country. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. On November 5th, Christian voters need to turn out in the largest numbers ever. Do you know that if you did that, because you have a reputation of not voting proportionately like you should, you do know that. I think that maybe is a form of rebellion. Could that be possible? You know, the two groups, not to equate them, but they are probably associated in some form. But Christians, evangelicals, but Christians and gun owners don't vote. They vote, but very small proportions. If they did, or if Christians did, nobody could ever beat us, nobody. So I hope that we're going to get numbers like we haven't seen. You remember, this is your last day. Today is your last day of registration. You have to remember that. And so if you want to leave right now, go and leave. I won't be insulted. Leave right now and go and register, but this is your last day. So we need to tell Kamala Harris that we've had enough. Kamala, you've been the worst vice president. You're a member of the worst administration in the history of our country. The happiest person around is Jimmy Carter, because Jimmy Carter is considered a brilliant president by comparison to crooked Joe Biden. Jimmy Carter is brilliant. His administration will go down as a brilliant administration compared to crooked Joe. But we're going to say, Kamala, you've done a horrible job. You're a horrible vice president. There's no way you're going to be our president. Kamala, you're fired. Get out, 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 out. For 4 straight years, I fought for Christians like no president has ever fought before. You know that. I protected the religious freedom of doctors, nurses, teachers, and faith groups like the Little Sisters of the Poor. Oh, I fought for them. I blocked the IRS. They were coming after everybody. They still are, I guess, to an extent. But now they are because of this administration. But I blocked the IRS from using the Johnson Amendment to interfere with pastors' freedom of speech. I mean, we want to hear from our pastors. We don't want them to be shy, where they take away your tax-exempt status because a pastor mentioned something that's slightly political, and I ended it. Kamala Harris has taken it away, and we're not. I'll tell you what. If you take it, she has taken your right away. I gave that to you, and they took it back. But we're going to give it back to you within the first week. I'd like to make it the first day, but it'll take me a little while. So we're going to give it back to you within the first week. You're going to have that right, because we want to hear from these people. There aren't too many people I want to hear from, but you I do want to hear from. So We're going to give you back within the first week, and Paula will make sure that that takes place. I will not disappoint you. I appointed 300 judges to interpret the law and the Constitution as written, and withstood the vicious attacks to confirm 3 great Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. They're great. And they're courageous. They're courageous and they're brilliant, but they are courageous. What they have to endure with the radical left and all of the things that they have to listen to, I actually think it's illegal what people do. They call it playing the ref. You know, playing the ref? They'll say horrible things, hoping that the 3, but also judges, they play the ref with judges. The great Bobby Knight basketball, he used to scream at the referee. He would scream like nobody ever screamed before. Indiana, here's a great guy. He backed me early on. He said, "You're going to win." I said, "Well, I don't know, Bobby." He said, "You're going to win. I have no doubt." He said, "I want this guy named Trump to run for president." I didn't know him. I called him up to thank him. He said, "You're going to win. All you have to do is say it. You got to run." And he was a tough cookie. He just died recently. But he had the last undefeated team in college basketball. He won 2 or 3 national championships. He was a great coach. And he never had the great, well, he had a couple, I guess, great players, but he never had that real player that some teams have. He just did it with team. But he would scream at the referees. They call it playing the ref. And they'd say, "Bobby, Bobby, you got to stop, Bobby. Don't do it. You're not going to win this call. You're not going to win it. It's over." He said, "No, but I'm going to win the next call." And it's true. They'd knock the hell out of somebody, and the referee was afraid to call it. It's true. He was a master. But they do that. They play the ref. They start screaming about the judge is no good, and this one's no good, and they're slow, and they're lousy judges, and the judge should be impeached, and all of this crap when you have a brilliant judge that's doing the right thing. And they get, and some people will fold a little bit. They'll say, "Hey, I'll get them off my back. Let me just give a bad ruling here or there." And some will do that, actually, but fortunately, most have courage and they understand. I really believe it's illegal what they do, and I know there's some great lawyers in the room. You ought to look at it, because what they do is so obvious. What they've done to the Supreme Court, even with the protection of their houses, you're not supposed to be allowed to march in front. They didn't stop it. You're not allowed to do any of these things that are happening. But they're playing the ref, and they're playing it with judges and justices, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it, and I believe it's illegal. I issued guidance making clear that the right to freedom of worship does not end at the door to a public school. We took care of it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I stood proudly with our friend and ally, the state of Israel. I kept my promise, recognized Israel's eternal capital, and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem, and actually got it built. I actually got it built. But many presidents, many presidents before me said they campaigned on doing that, and then they didn't do it. And I understand why, because when I got into office, I was called by people, heads of state, highest level. I was called by kings and prime ministers. I was called by everybody. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then they heard I was going to do it. And they all called me. And I said, "Just do me a favor." I shouldn't say this because little white, would you call it? Yeah, I wasn't available. I said, "Just tell them I won't be available, but I'll call." This, I think, was a Thursday. I said, "I'll call you back on Monday." To kings, to the biggest people from the biggest countries, most powerful countries. And I said, "I'll call you back." And then on Thursday, I announced it. I said, "We are going to do exactly what a lot of people didn't want me to do." They said there'd be bloodshed and everything else all over. There was none. And I did something that no other president had the courage to do. And then on Monday, I called them back. "Hi. How have you been?" "Oh, I tried getting you. I wasn't able to, but you've already done it." So we made Jerusalem the capital, and that brought a lot of Did you know that? That was something I didn't know. So, but I understood why the presidents were. I mean, every single person that campaigned for decades and decades, every president said they were going to do it. None of them did it. I did. I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights was a big deal. The Golan Heights, that's another thing. 72 years, people would come in and leave, come in and leave. They'd meet every year, every 2 years about the Golan Heights. And I spoke with David Friedman. I said, give me a lesson in 5 minutes or less on the Golan Heights. And he did. Talked about how important it was strategically. And before all of the modern equipment and radar and all of that we have now. But it was unbelievably important from a military, because it was the highest point in the Middle East. And I did that, and nobody even asked for that because they thought that would be a bridge too far. But I did that for Israel. And I was the first and only president to convene a meeting at the United Nations to end religious persecution worldwide. Nobody's done what I've done in terms of religion, in terms of Christianity, but in terms of religion, nobody's done what I did. And we did all of this and much more in 4 short years, and I will keep on fighting for our cherished American values when we become the 47th President of the United States. Thank you. Under Kamala Harris, you've seen the Department of Justice target parents at school board meetings. Have you ever seen anything like it? They're like the enemy. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. These great people, they just want their children to be treated reasonably well. And the FBI would send spies into Catholic churches. I don't know how many Catholics are here, but if you're Catholic, there is no way you can be voting for these people. These people are a nightmare. I don't know what they have against Catholics, but Catholics are treated worse than anybody. So, and by the way, evangelicals are next. You can bet on it. Evangelicals are next, but they label Catholics as potential domestic terrorists. And the fact is that they'll be coming after you soon. These people are sick. These people are very sick people. Christians will not be safe with Kamala Harris as President of the United States. It's not even thinkable. She's going to deal with President Xi of China. I don't think so. I know him very well. He's a very fierce man. Putin, all of these people, I know them all very well. And we'll end up in Third World War because they have no idea. They have no idea. We're not going to have a Third World War, but if they get in, I think that we will have a Third World War out of stupidity, out of absolute stupidity. Think of it. Putin would have never, ever attacked Ukraine if I were president. All of those people that are now dead would not be dead. All of those cities that are knocked to the ground with those magnificent domed towers that are laying on the side, shattered into a million pieces, all of that would be up right now. You take a look at those cities, they've been bombed, there's nothing standing, there's literally not a building standing in many of them. As soon as I take the oath of office, I will stop Kamala Harris' weaponization of law enforcement against Americans of faith. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And you know, did you ever notice? So it's Kamala Harris. Nobody knows who the hell Harris is, right? Do you ever say, and we're going to stop Harris? They all go, who's Harris? It's a weird thing. You'd think your name would be, but isn't it true? Nobody knows who Harris is, so we'll call her Kamala. It's a weird thing. Lots of strange things take place in politics, don't they? But I will create a new federal task force on fighting anti-Christian bias. That'll be done immediately. And I think it's very important for the people in this room to know, like Dr. Ben Carson knows, Americans of faith are not a threat to our country. Americans of faith are the soul of our country, right? I will once again appoint rock-solid pro-constitutional judges to faithfully interpret the law and the Constitution. You know, the 300 judges that we appointed changed the whole, I mean, it was so bad. It was so bad what was happening out there. And these are great people, and they're fair people, and they do the right thing. We believe in the First Amendment rights of freedom of worship and freedom of speech. And I will deliver universal school choice, empowering every parent to send their child to the public, private, charter, or religious school that is right for them. And I will allow homeschool parents to spend $10,000 a year tax-free on costs associated with their children's education. Under the Trump administration, we will return patriotic education to our schools. That's okay. That's a good thing. Kamala Harris supports the 1619 Project. Think of that. She supports it strongly, that teaches children to hate their country. That's what it does. The 1619 Project was condemned by every historian, and yet Kamala Harris's administration tried to push it into schools all across America. She fought very hard for that. She also fought very hard for the people that burned down Minneapolis, that were literally at war in Minnesota with one of the worst governors. I cannot believe this guy's a governor. Can you imagine him as a president? He is a wackadoo. And by the way, how good did J.D. Vance do in exposing him? They lie about everything. You know, they were going today, every single thing, every single thing, they say it's the opposite. Project 2025, Trump loves it, he loves it, he loves it. They just say it, and I've totally disavowed it. A group of people went in, I don't know what they did. I said specifically, I refuse to read it, but every time they get up, they say everything that I've disavowed. They go on again and again and again, and the radical left people that are listening to them just let them talk, and they know it's all a big lie, but they just lie. I've never seen anything like it. You know, I've had some political opponents before. I've never seen, even crooked Hillary didn't lie like these people, and she lied a lot. But these people are going, I actually think they're choking, because I watched today, every single thing that I've said, no, 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 they say, he said, yes, 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 like point after point. And no, there's something going on in their heads. Perhaps it's Trump derangement syndrome. It's horrible. Or perhaps they know they're losing because we're doing very well. They know how well we're doing. Even the fake news, and that's a lot of fake news back there, Ben. The fake news knows how well we're doing. Isn't it sad that we have to rely on the gambling? The gamblers are the ones that are the only ones that want to say it. They're the ones, 65%. No, they know, but we're going to just let it wait. And I really think we're going to have maybe one of the greatest victories in the history of our country. The history of our country. On day one, I will sign an executive order banning schools from promoting critical race theory or transgender insanity. I will take historic action to defeat the toxic poison of gender ideology and reaffirm that God created two genders, male and female. I will keep men out of women's sports. I will sign a law banning child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. Won't happen anymore. And we will proudly say Merry Christmas again. On day one, I will stop the migrant invasion. We will begin the largest deportation operation in the history of our country. I will end inflation, and we will make America affordable again. We will quickly become energy independent again. You know, we were energy independent just 4 years ago. And we will frack, 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 and drill, baby, drill. And I will cut energy prices in half within 12 months from January 20th, the day you assume the office of president. We will have, because we have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country, including Russia and including Saudi Arabia. We were third and maybe even fourth when I got in there. When I left, we were number one in energy production. And we did things that were amazing. We would have right now been 4 times higher than we were. We would have been making money, paying down debt. We would have been in a position that you wouldn't believe, but they decided to do it a different way. It's terrible. Wind, they put wind all over the place. Wind kills your birds, and if you want to watch television and the wind isn't blowing, you can forget it. Darling, let's watch the president tonight. I'm sorry, Esther, but the wind isn't blowing. We won't be able to watch. It's not exactly the most reliable source, but it is something. It's the most expensive source by far. I will end the war in Ukraine, stop the chaos in the Middle East, and prevent World War III. I will crush violent crime and give our police the support, protection, resources, and respect they so dearly deserve. We will rebuild our cities, including our capital in Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. And we will secure our elections. Everyone will prosper, every family will thrive, and every day we will be filled with opportunity and hope. We will again have the American dream for our children. But for that to happen, we must defeat Kamala Harris and stop her radical left agenda. We have to stop it once and for all. We want a landslide that is too big to rig. Too big to rig. Early voting is underway, so you know what you have to do. So Christians, get everyone you know and vote. You have to vote, or we're not going to have the life that we should have, a life of prosperity and hope, a life of beauty. We're not going to have it. We're going to be fighting for our lives. These people they mean serious business. I honestly believe in many cases they're sick, and we cannot let this happen. Because it was our religion that kept our country together for many years. It was our religion that kept it together, and they're trying to take that away, and they're trying to destroy our country. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. With your help, from now until Election Day, we will redeem America's promise. We will put America first. And we will take back the nation that we love. November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country, and together we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you all. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Young man, there's no need to feel down. I said, young man, pick yourself off the ground. I said, young man, 'cause you're in a new town. There's no need to be unhappy. Young man, there's a place you can go. I said, young man, when you're short on your dough, you can stay there. And I'm sure you will find many ways to have a good time. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. They have everything for young men to enjoy. You can hang out with all the boys. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. You can get yourself clean. You can have a good meal. You can do whatever you feel. Young man.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's been a really great period of time. I'll be leaving now, as you know, for South Korea. Some of you will be coming with us. I understand that we may be meeting with Chairman Kim, and we'll find out. We spoke with the people. Kim Jong-un was very receptive. He responded, and so we'll see. Because tomorrow we're going to the DMZ. I said, while I'm there, I'll shake his hand. We get along. There's been no nuclear tests. There's been no long-range ballistic tests. Gave us back our hostages, which was great, and a lot of good things are happening over there. So I let him know we'll be there, and we'll see. I mean, I can't tell you exactly, but they did respond very favorably. I want to thank everyone for being here today. It's a lot of press. A lot of press is outside too. They're less happy than you are. But the G20 summit has been fantastic. Prime Minister Abi's done an incredible job, as he always does. And he hosted it very beautifully. You know where it's going to be next year, I think. Most of you know where it's going to be next year. It's going to be in a very great part of the world. And we'll be announcing exactly what's happening. But this was a really good summit and really well done, so professionally done. This marks my third visit to Japan as president. Melania and I we just left Tokyo a short while ago, as you know, a very short while ago, where we were the first state guests to their majesties, the Emperor and Empress of Japan. And that was thrilling. First time in 202 years that an event like that took place. So that was quite exciting. And I'm thrilled to be back. I always like being back in Japan. We've had a great relationship. We've never been closer to Japan than we are right now. Over the past 2 days, leaders from the world's largest economies have convened here in Osaka, which is a tremendous city. You fly over and you say, does it ever stop? It's big, it's beautiful, it's clean, and it's really the job they do with industrial manufacturing and lots of other things is really incredible. We had a very productive conversation with a number of the leaders of not only nations but business leaders here in Japan, and together we put together a lot of ideas and a lot of challenges for the future that we'll be able to meet and get things going very well. Our meetings also touched on women's economic empowerment. You probably saw that Ivanka Trump she's done a fantastic job, and also a fantastic job in getting jobs for a lot of people within our country, almost 10 million people. The importance of resilient and secure infrastructure, we discussed that at great length. The need to uphold the rule of law and the critical importance of achieving a future for international trade. that works all of the time for all of the people. In addition to the working sessions, we had a lot of working sessions. Many of you were at the working sessions. I had tremendous bilateral meetings with many of the heads of state, and just some of them are Australia, Japan, India, Germany, Russia, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, China, Turkey, UK, and I met with Mexico also, with the representatives of Mexico who have done an incredible job. They've really stepped up to the plate. I appreciate it, and I want to thank them. They have 6,000 troops at their southern border by Guatemala, and it's very hard to come in now. And they just ordered, really, it was somewhat of a surprise, 16,000 troops at our southern border. Their immigration laws are very strong. Ours are a disaster. Ours are a disgrace to a country. We have loopholes and asylum that we could fix the asylum very quickly. We could get rid of and fix the loopholes, but we could get rid of the loopholes and we would have absolutely no problem at the border. But if you watch the debates, if you call them debates, whatever they were, they don't really, I think they want open borders, I guess, even though 4 years ago they wanted walls to be built. I heard we just had another judge rule against us on a section of wall, and that's disgraceful. We'll appeal it right away. Ninth Circuit, as usual. They go right into that Ninth Circuit. The good news, I put a lot of judges in, and a number of them are in the Ninth Circuit now, and it's very unfair. It's very unfair when a judge can do what they do, where a judge in a certain area can close down a country. But we also had a big victory last week with the wall. We had a judge in D.C. who gave us a very big victory. So we're building a lot of wall, but we had a ruling just yesterday late from a judge in the Ninth Circuit again. So we're immediately appealing it, and we think we'll win the appeal. There was no reason that should have happened. And a lot of wall is being built. And again, Mexico's doing a real job. Our Border Patrol, they've done incredible work, and ICE is, they're just special people. Law enforcement generally is just special. So with that, I just want to say that these meetings have been great. The one that I guess most people are interested in is China. We had a great meeting, President Xi, and we've known each other for as long as I'm president. And many of you were at the event in China a year ago when I've never seen anything like it. It was beautiful. We talked about it. We had dinner last night, President Xi and a number of us. And it was something really incredible. In Beijing, the red carpet was rolled out for all of us, for this country, for our country. And we had a great meeting, and we will be continuing to negotiate. And I promised that for at least the time being, we're not going to be lifting tariffs on China. We won't be adding an additional, tremendous amount of, we have, I guess, $350 billion left, which could be taxed or could be tariffed. And we're not doing that. We're going to work with China on where we left off to see if we can make a deal. China is going to start, they're going to be consulting with us, and they're going to start spending money even during the negotiation to our farmers, our great farmers in the Midwest. I call them the great patriots, because that's what they are. They're patriots. And China is going to be buying a tremendous amount of food and agricultural product, and they're going to start that very soon, almost immediately. We're going to give them lists of things that we'd like them to buy. Our farmers are going to be a tremendous beneficiary. You know, if you look at farmers, for 15 years before I came into this position, the farmers have had a hard time. You look at that graph; it was down, fairly steeply down, and a lot of it was because NAFTA was a terrible deal. Now we have I spoke with Nancy Pelosi last night about the USMCA. That's Mexico and Canada. And it's now before them, and they'll have to make a decision. But That's one that the farmers love, the manufacturers love, the unions love. It's a great deal for this country. And NAFTA was, I think, one of the worst trade deals ever made. Maybe the WTO was worse. The WTO, from the time that happened in '95, from the time that happened, China became like a rocket ship. It was pretty much flatlined, and then all of a sudden it joined the WTO, and they went through the roof. And very much to our liability, we lost tremendous amounts of money from that time. I mean, we just lost tremendous amounts. It was a terrible deal, WTO, World Trade. And if you look at NAFTA, NAFTA has been a disaster for our country. The USMCA is a great deal for our country. I think Canada's happy, but they're not happy like we're happy, but they're very happy. It's a good deal for Canada, good deal for Mexico. They want it. Mexico just approved it in full. Canada is waiting for us to approve it. I was with the Prime Minister, just left him a little while ago, and they're thrilled with the deal, and we're thrilled. Everybody wants it, and hopefully it'll be a bipartisan deal. I view that. I told that to Nancy Pelosi. I said, view this as a bipartisan deal, because a lot of the Democrats want it, especially, I would say, the farm areas, but really the industrial areas also, the unions. We've got things on wages, and we have things on the environment that few people have ever been able to get into an agreement. And it's a very big deal. It's a very big deal. And it's a great deal. Tremendous support. So they have to put it up for a vote. And I think you'll get a great vote in the House, and you'll get a great vote in the Senate. And you'll have a tremendous trade deal between the United States and Canada and Mexico. And it's going to be something very special. So we spend a lot of time with a lot of countries. We do business with a lot of them. Australia's an example. In Japan, we're negotiating with them because they send us millions of cars, and we send them wheat, which doesn't work. But what happens is Japan is, and you probably saw some of the things they're doing, but they're opening up many car companies and factories and plants throughout our country, especially in Michigan. We have a lot of activity in Ohio. Beyond Japan activity, we have a lot of activity now where companies are coming back to our country with a hot show. We're the hottest show in town. We're the hottest show in the world right now. Our economy is the best. One thing that every leader, virtually every leader that I dealt with said is that congratulations, it's incredible what's happened to the American economy. We're the best economy in the world. And it's something, and it started from Election Day. I put it out yesterday because we took a tremendous boost from the day after I got elected. The stock market went crazy from that point until essentially now. I think we hit in certain of the markets, we hit the all-time high again for many, many times. I can't tell you what it was, but many, many times. We broke the record, and our stock market is great. Our jobs are great. We have the best job numbers essentially we've ever had. In some categories, definitely we've ever had. The minimum, you could say, is in 51 years, but it's really more than that, and now it's going to be more than that. African American, Asian American, you saw that. Hispanic American, the best numbers in history, the history of our country. We have the lowest unemployment numbers, best numbers. And many others too. Blue-collar workers are doing fantastic. They're the biggest beneficiary of the tax cuts, the blue-collar. Blue-collar, we talk about for the rich, it's really for everybody. And it's also for big companies where they're moving here. And remember who owns the stocks, because the people that own the stock, it's not the big companies, it's the people with 401ks whose numbers are 60% and 70% and 42% and all different numbers that are tremendously high, where the other spouse thinks that the spouse that's investing in the 401k is a super genius. But those 401ks are very high. And if you listen to what I've been listening to, and we're not going to devote any time to it, but with that kind of an attitude, their 401ks are going to crash and the market would crash. Because with what they want to do, you would crash the market. And the amount of wealth that would be lost would be incredible. But I'd rather wait till later in the campaign to say that, because to be honest with you, I want them to go and take these policies and bring them up. I don't want them to change them anytime soon. Let them go have a good time. But it's been very interesting to watch what's happening. Actually, I found it very interesting. So with that, we'll take a few questions, and then I'm heading out to South Korea. And I may or may not see Kim Jong-un, but we'll be heading out to South Korea, spend about a day and a half there with President Moon, who's a really good guy. He was here too, as you know. I saw him. I met with him also. And we'll see what happens. Please, John.
Thanks, Katie. Mr. President, thanks so much for joining us here.
Yes.
We all appreciate it. It's always good to have a chance to ask questions of you
Right.
directly. Can you tell us a little more about how this China deal may work going forward? Because Chinese officials have told Fox News that they will not make any concessions until all of the tariffs have been lifted. They also want relief on Huawei. They want to take it off the blacklist. They might want you to stop pursuing extradition of Meng Wanzhou. Can you tell us how you see all of this unfolding? And if you do meet Kim Jong-un at the DMZ tomorrow, would you step across the border into North Korea?
Sure, I would. I'd feel very comfortable doing that. I would have no problem. With respect to China, basically we agreed today that we were going to continue the negotiation, which I ended a while back, and we're going to continue the negotiation. We agreed that I would not be putting tariffs on the $325 billion that I would have the ability to put on if I wanted. We're fairly advanced, depending on where you want to look at and where you want to start. Pretty advanced. We did discuss numerous other things. We mentioned Huawei. I said we'll have to save that till the very end. We'll have to see. One of the things I will allow, however, is a lot of people are surprised. We send and we sell to Huawei a tremendous amount of product that goes into the various things that they make. And I said that that's okay, that we will keep selling that product. These are American companies, John, that make product. And that's very complex, by the way, highly scientific. And in some cases, we're the ones that do it, and we're the only ones that do it. We're the only ones with the technology. What we've done in Silicon Valley is incredible, actually. And nobody's been able to compete with it. And I've agreed, and pretty easily, I've agreed to allow them to continue to sell that product. So American companies will continue. And they were having a problem. The companies were not exactly happy that they couldn't sell because they had nothing to do with whatever was potentially happening with respect to Huawei. So I did do that. We talked about education and students. Somebody was saying it was harder for Chinese students to come in, and that's something that if somebody viewed it that way, I don't. We want to have Chinese students come and use our great schools, our great universities. They've been great students and tremendous assets. But we did discuss it. It was brought up as a point. And I said that will be just like anybody else, just like any other nation. And we're actually going to a point where, we're looking that if you graduate from a college, because our great companies, we talk about Silicon Valley and other places, we have a problem in this, in our country, that you graduate number one in your class from the best school in the country, and they say you have to leave. We can't keep them. And we're going to make it, we're going to call it the smart person's waiver, but we're going to make it so that they can not only stay, but maybe they have access to green cards. We want to keep these people here. We have to keep. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Are you concerned that, as they did before, China could get most of the way down the road and then say,
Sure,
we're going to pull back?
that could happen. But we're holding on tariffs, and they're going to buy farm product. So, but that could happen, John. This doesn't mean there's going to be a deal, but they would like to make a deal, I can tell you that. And if we could make a deal, it would be a very historic event. We've never really had a deal with China. We've had tremendous deficits. Tremendous amounts of money was put into China, $500 billion a year. And I mean, not just surplus and deficit. I'm talking about real hard cash. And it should have never, ever been allowed to have happened for all of our presidents over the last number of years. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Steve Herman from the Voice of America. After your discussions with Prime Minister Abe here, are you still thinking about withdrawing from the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty? And what did the Prime Minister say to you about that?
No, I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm just saying that it's an unfair agreement. And I've told him that for the last 6 months. I said, look, if somebody attacks Japan, we go after them and we are in a battle, full force and effect. We are locked in a battle and committed to fight for Japan. If somebody should attack the United States, they don't have to do that. That's unfair. That's the kind of deals we made. Every deal's like that. I mean, it's almost like we had people that they didn't either care or they were stupid. But that's the kind of deals we have. That's just typical. But I told them, I said, we're going to have to change it because, look, nobody's going to attack us, I hope. But, you know, should that happen, it's far more likely that it could be the other way. But should that happen, somebody attacks us, if we're helping them, they're going to have to help us. And he knows that. And he's going to have no problem with that. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually have a Russia question, but I wanted to quickly clarify. Is Meng Wanzhou's case also going to need to wait till the very end, or is it possible the U.S. would drop the extradition effort?
On what? On what?
Ms. Meng from Huawei, the top financial
We didn't
executive.
discuss Ms. May. That was not discussed. We did discuss Huawei, but we didn't discuss her situation.
Okay, thank you. On Russia, respectfully, it seemed like maybe you didn't really mean it when you said yesterday, don't meddle in our elections, Mr. President, and then you guys both started laughing.
You're going to have to take a look at the words. I did say it. And we had a discussion. We had a great discussion, President Putin and myself. I thought it was really a tremendous discussion. I think they'd like to do trade with the United States, and they have great product. They have great land. They have very rich land and a lot of oil, a lot of minerals, and the kind of things that we like. And I can see trade going out with Russia. We could do fantastically well. We do very little trade with Russia, which is ridiculous, frankly. So I could see some very positive things happening. Yeah, but as per your question, though, I did say it, and I did discuss it a little bit after that, too. Yeah, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, former President Jimmy Carter suggested that your presidency is illegitimate and that you only got the White House with help from Russia. Your reaction to that, sir?
Russia. Isn't it crazy? Okay, Jimmy Carter, look, he was a nice man. He was a terrible president. He's a Democrat, and it's a typical talking point. He's loyal to the Democrats, and I guess you should be. But as everybody now understands, I won not because of Russia, not because of anybody but myself. I went out, I campaigned better, smarter, harder than Hillary Clinton. I went to Wisconsin. I went to Michigan the night of the vote. I had 32,000 people at 1 o'clock in the morning on Election Day. I won Michigan, I won Wisconsin, I won Pennsylvania, I won states that traditionally haven't been won by a Republican, for many years haven't been won by a Republican. And this had nothing to do with anybody but the fact that I worked harder and much smarter than Hillary Clinton did. Now, I'll say this, Jimmy Carter, I was surprised that he would make a statement. I saw it. It was not a big thing, but I saw the statement. And it's, you know, a lot of Democrats like to make that statement. He's been trashed within his own party. He's been badly trashed. I felt badly for it because you look over the years, his party has virtually, he's like the forgotten president. And I understand why they say that. He was not a good president. Look at what happened with Iran. That was a disaster. What Iran did to him, they tied him up in knots. The reason Ronald Reagan probably became president. So, you know, it's a Democrat talking point. Yeah, please, go ahead, Jim.
Yes, Mr. President, if I could follow up on the question about your comments with Vladimir Putin about
Sure.
Russian meddling. You did seem to be joking there with the Russian president. Are we taking that to be wrong? And what is it with your coziness with some of these dictators and autocrats at these summits? With Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, when you were asked about the case of Jamal Khashoggi, You did not respond to that question in front of the
I don't
Saudi
know that
crown prince?
anybody
Were you
asked me.
afraid of,
Yeah.
were you afraid of offending him on that subject?
No, not at all. I don't really care about offending people. I sort of thought you'd know that.
Well, you passed up an opportunity
And
there.
by the way, congratulations. I understand your book. Is it doing well?
It's doing very well, Mr. President.
Really?
Thank you. I'll get you an autographed copy. If
Good.
you like
Send
one.
it. I want to see it.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Send me a copy. No, I get along with everybody, except you people, actually. I get along with a lot of people. I have a tremendous relationship with President Xi. Nobody else would have the deal that we have. We're getting tens of billions of dollars from China coming in. A lot of things are happening. And despite that, we're moving along towards something that could be very historic. But I get along with President Putin. I get along with Mohammed from Saudi Arabia. Look, I spoke to Saudi Arabia when the oil prices a year ago were getting very high. And I wasn't so nice. And I said, you got to get some more oil into the system because what's happening is no good. And they did. And people are driving at, very low numbers right now. You haven't seen. In the old days, you'd have spikes where the gasoline went to $5 and more, and it wasn't so good. But I also get along with people that would be perceived as being very nice. You have a lot of very nice leaders of countries. I was with Prime Minister May today. I was with so many. You take a look, new head of Australia. Look at Japan. Abe, Prime Minister Abe is a fine. They're all fine as far as I'm concerned. Some are stronger than others. Some are tougher than others. And a lot of people.
If I may, though, Mr. President, on the case of Jamal Khashoggi, we have a lot of journalists in this room who object to what appears to be the Saudi government's complicity and perhaps orchestration of the assassination and dismembering of a journalist.
Yeah.
And when you were given the opportunity to call Mohammed bin Salman out on that, you did not do it. Did you do it privately? And do you agree that it is despicable for a government to kill a journalist in that fashion?
Yes, I do. I think it's horrible. Or anybody else, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think it's horrible. And if you look into Saudi Arabia, you see what's happening. 13 people or so have been prosecuted. Others are being prosecuted. They've taken it very, very seriously. And they will continue to. And I've let everybody know I'm very unhappy about that whole event. But if you look at what's going on, and right now within Saudi Arabia, they're prosecuting additional people. There's a lot of things happening. At the same time, I will also say, and nobody so far has pointed directly a finger at the future king of Saudi Arabia. I will say I spoke to his father, Jim. I spoke to his father at great length. They've been a terrific ally. They're creating millions of jobs in this country. They're ordering equipment, not only military equipment, but $400 billion worth of, and actually even more than that over a period of time, worth of different things. And with that being said, I'm extremely angry and unhappy about a thing like that taking place. But as of this moment, more than 13 people are being prosecuted, and I hear the number's going to be going up. But it's a good question. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Ching-Yi Chang with Shanghai Media Group.
Yes.
It's very good to know that you avert the further escalation of trade tension with China. And can you share some details of your interaction with President Xi this time? And also, if I may, another quick question on North Korea. Do you think it's possible that there will be a third one-on-one summit with
Sure.
Chairman Kim within this year?
Well, it might happen tomorrow. I mean, to be honest, we won't call it a summit. We'll call it a handshake if it does happen. I don't know that it will, but it could happen. I think he'd like to do it, and I wouldn't mind doing it at all. I'm literally visiting the DMZ. And so, but I will, as per your question about President Xi, he's a brilliant leader. He's a brilliant man. And you know better than I, he's probably considered to be one of the great leaders in 200 years in China. And we just have he's strong, he's tough, but he's good. We have a very good relationship. And I said, we can't have it where the United States loses this kind of money for the privilege of building up China. It has to be a fair deal. And he understands that. But as he said, nobody ever came to us. It's true. No other president came to him. My presidency could be a lot easier. Not only for that, but for many other reasons. It'd be a lot easier. But I don't want it to be easy. It's a point in time. I have a chance to do things that nobody else has ever done. So we're making a deal with China, or we're attempting. And if we don't, we'll go back into, we have a tremendous ripe field of tremendous money that would be coming into our country. But I have a feeling that over a period of time, and again, I'm not rushed, and I told him that I want to get the deal right. It's extremely, I wouldn't even say complicated, but very intricate. But in the meantime, I think our farmers are going to end up being the great beneficiary. And what I did with the farmers, because they did lose a certain amount of money, I went to Sonny Perdue, who's our Secretary of Agriculture. I said, Sonny, how much money in the best year did China spend on our farms, in our farms, buying? He said, the best year, about $16 billion. I said, okay, well, we're taking in much more than that now every year in tariffs. And I took $16 billion out of those tariffs, and essentially out of those tariffs, and we're distributing it among farmers who have been hurt because they've been used as a pawn so that China could get a good deal. But in the end, the farmers are going to be the biggest beneficiary. But I've made up for the fact that China was, targeting our farmers because they know the farmers like me, and I like them. I love them. And they sort of love me, I guess, when you get right down to it. And it was $16 billion. It's a lot of money. But I took it out of the tariff money, essentially, and we are in the process of distributing. The farmers could not be happier, other than they're unusual. I had them around a table, many of the farmers, and about 5 weeks ago, they said, we don't want money. We want just a level playing field. I said, you're right. Most groups want money. They'll take any way you want to give it to them, they'll take. The farmers are in a class by themselves in so many ways. They don't want subsidies. They don't want a handout. All they want to do is have a level playing field. They're unbelievable people. And as I said, they're unbelievable patriots. John?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
First, a quick follow-up. You've made this very public invitation to Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Will it be a bad sign if he doesn't show up?
No. Of course, I thought of that because I know if he didn't, everybody's going to say, oh, he was stood up by Chairman Kim. No, I understood that. It's very hard to, he follows my Twitter. And
he does?
It's very hard. Yeah,
He follows
I
you on
guess
Twitter?
so, because we got a call very quickly.
Okay.
A lot of people follow it. But, they've contacted us and they'd like to see if they could do so. And we're not talking about for, extended, just a quick hello. And we get along. I get along with him and I get along with other people. For instance, on Jim's question, it's a fair question, but I really have great relationships with everybody. I think, I said a long time ago that maybe I'll be a sleeper on foreign policy. And if you look at what's happened on foreign policy, now we are working on Iran, and we'll see what happens. I think they'd like to make a deal. I think they'd be very smart to want to make a deal, but we're going to see what happens. I'm okay. I have all the time in the world. They're doing very poorly. They were very brutal when I first came in. 18 sites of confliction, meaning where they were behind. But I think on foreign policy, if you look at what's happening, and the other thing that's happening is we're not being taken for suckers anymore. I mean, we have countries where we'd lose on defending them because we defend a tremendous percentage of the world, and they don't pay us for it. And then on top of it, we lose money with that same country on trade. And it's all changing, and they understand it's changing, and they expect it to change. They can't believe, honestly, like I'd ask Prime Minister Abe, I said, how did this happen? Where you send us billions and billions of dollars worth of cars and other things, and we send you practically nothing. He said, nobody ever complained. Same thing with China. I said, you send a car to us, we charge you essentially nothing. It's 2.5%, but basically you don't have to, there are ways around that. So you send a car to us, and you pay nothing. We send a car to you made in the United States, and we have to pay 45% tariff. How did that happen? He said, we just kept lifting it. I mean, they're being honest with me. We just kept lifting it, and nobody called. But I call. I call. Go ahead, John.
And I want to ask you about the debate. You clearly saw at least some of the Democratic debate.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw the exchange between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on the issue of federal busing, federally mandated busing. Biden thought that was a bad policy. He tried to stop it. Kamala Harris said it was an important part of desegregation, including in her own experience. Where do you stand on that issue of federally mandated busing?
Well, first of all, before I get into that, I thought that she was given too much credit. He didn't do well, certainly, and maybe the facts weren't necessarily on his side. I think she was given too much credit for what she did. Wasn't that outstanding? And I think probably he was hit harder than he should have been hit, Biden. I thought he was hit actually harder. And as far as that, I will tell you in about 4 weeks, because we're coming out with certain policy that's going to be very interesting and very surprising, I think, to a lot of people. Jennifer, do you have a question?
But do you think Kamala Harris would be a tough opponent for you, given what you saw in that debate?
You never know who's going to be tough. You never know. One that you think is going to be tough turns out to be not much. And sometimes you think one, and I've seen it, because look, I had 17. We had actually a total of 18. A lot of people think 17. Governor of Virginia, remember? Ed, the governor of Virginia, wasn't there long, the previous governor. But of the 18, you know, many were, all their lives they wanted to be politicians. I never thought about being a politician until about 2 days before I decided to run. A little before that, but not too much before. And they, you know, you looked at some of them, they're very talented. You look at their resumes, it's like, great. And sometimes the ones that I thought would be the toughest were not the toughest at all. I mean, I could write a book. I should write a book. But some of the people that I did in the Republican, because we had sort of a similar thing. We had 18 instead of, I guess they have 24, 25. But some of the ones that I thought would be absolutely without question the toughest turned out, I didn't think they were tough at all. Others that a lot of people said weren't tough, they were tougher. I think she was given far too much credit for what she did. That was so out of the can, what she said, and that thing was right out of a box. And I thought that he didn't respond great. I wouldn't say it was one, this was not Winston Churchill we're dealing with, okay? But it wasn't I don't think nearly as bad as they portended it to be. Jennifer, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Could I clarify your negotiations and what you agreed to with China on Huawei?
Sure.
Did you agree that Huawei can sell to the U.S. or that U.S. companies can sell to
U.S.
Huawei?
companies can sell their equipment to Huawei. We're talking about equipment where there's no great national emergency problem with it, but the U.S. companies can sell their equipment. So we have a lot of the great companies in Silicon Valley and based in different parts of the country that make extremely complex equipment. We're letting them sell to Huawei.
And then on Turkey, sir, will Turkey face sanctions if it goes ahead with the S-400 purchases?
Okay, so Turkey is an interesting case because there's another one, Jim, that I get along with very well, and he's a tough cookie, okay? Right? President Erdogan. He's tough, but I get along with him. And maybe that's a bad thing, but I think it's a really good thing because, frankly, he wanted to wipe out, he has a big problem with the Kurds, as everyone knows, and he had a 65,000-man army at the border, and he was going to wipe out the Kurds who helped us with ISIS. We took out the caliphate. We have 100% of the caliphate. And I called him and I asked him not to do it. They are, I guess, natural enemies of his or Turkey's. And he hasn't done it. They were lined up to go out and wipe out the people that we just defeated the ISIS caliphate with. And I said, you can't do that. You can't do it. And he didn't do it. So I have a relationship. But let me tell you, so he goes out. During the Obama administration, he wants to buy our Patriot missile. Right? They wouldn't sell it to him. He wants to buy, even though he's a member of NATO, and in theory he could be an ally if he respected the president. He's got a big army, and he's, you know, they're fighters. Turkey's big fighters. And we're working on Idlib province together because he doesn't want to see 3 million people killed, and neither do I, in Syria. And I mentioned that was another thing. I mentioned, folks, to President Putin. I said, please, take it easy with Idlib. because, they've been encircling that. I think if I didn't put out a statement 6 months ago, that would have been catastrophic. But there you have 30,000 terrorists in Idlib province. You have 3 million people. And, getting terrorists is okay. But you don't want to kill 3 million people or 1 million people to get the terrorists. So anyway, we get along great. But what happened with Turkey, and I will tell you when it's fair, when it's not fair, he wanted to buy the Patriot missile. President Obama's group said no. He kept wanting to buy it. They kept saying no, no, no. Couldn't buy it. Now he needed it for defense. So he then went to Russia, and he bought the S-400, made a deal to buy it, because he couldn't get it. They wouldn't allow him to buy it. They wouldn't allow it. This administration, meaning this administration previous to mine, would not let him buy it. So he goes out, he goes to Russia, and he makes a deal for the S-400. And let's assume it's not nearly as good. But he made a deal. He paid him money, a lot of money, put up a lot of money. And he bought it. As soon as he bought it, people went back to him from our country, and they said, listen, we don't want you to use that system because it's not the NATO system, et cetera, et cetera. You know all the reasons. We don't want you to use that system. Do us a favor. We'll sell you the Patriot. He said, it's too late. I already bought it. There was nothing he could do. He already bought it. In the meantime, he bought over 100 F-35s, the greatest fighter jet in the world. It's stealth. You can't see it. It's real hard to beat something when you can't see it. But he bought over 100. I think he bought 116. But he bought over 100, a lot. And he has options for more. And now he wants delivery. He's paid a tremendous amount of money up front to Lockheed, our company, our jobs, everything. And now they're saying he's using the S-400 system, which isn't compatible with our system. And if you use the S-400 system, Russia and other people can gain access into the genius of the F-35. But honestly, I'm all for our country, but he got treated very unfairly. He was told, you can't buy it, you can't buy it. It's the old secret when you can't have something. All of a sudden, he ends up going getting something else, and then they said, first they said, we'll sell it to you, you can have it in 4 years. Then they said, we'll get it to you immediately. But he said, I can't do it. I've spent a fortune on buying another system, similar system, from Russia. The problem is he already bought the planes, and the planes aren't compatible from our standpoint, not from the standpoint of compatibility, but from our standpoint, national security-wise. So it's a mess. It's a mess. And honestly, it's not really Erdogan's fault. So now we have breaking news. Donald Trump loves Turkey.
So
he
that means
loves Turkey.
it doesn't
Donald
sound
Trump
like
is
you're-
on the side of Turkey instead of the United. No, I'm not.
You don't sound
I
like
love
you wanna
our
go
country,
ahead
but
with
I have to
sanctions.
tell you, President Erdogan, who has done, he gave me our pastor back, Pastor Brunson. Nobody else could get him back. Remember? They couldn't get him back. President Obama, he was in jail for 35 years. He was going to be in jail forever. Pastor Brunson, who was an innocent man. I called him, and after a very short period of time, Pastor Brunson was standing in the Oval Office with me, and he was back. So, he's been, from my standpoint, and he's a tough guy, okay, when you talk about tough. He's tough, but I get along with him. I think he was unfairly treated. We were told you can't have it. And then after he bought another system, we said, we'll sell it to you, we'll give it to you right away. But he couldn't use it then. But by that time, he had already bought the plane. So it's a complicated deal. We're working on it. We'll see what we can do.
Can I ask you one last quick thing on China?
Yes, go.
So there was a negotiation on Huawei, welcoming students, holding off on tariffs. So it sounds like China has agreed to buy more ag, but is this a lopsided agreement, or what more did
No,
China
we
agree to?
agreed on China. It's actually a good question. I did agree to allow our companies, it's jobs. I like our companies selling things to other people. So I allowed that to happen. Very complex things. Not easy. This is not things that are easy to make. Very few companies are able to do it. But a tremendous amount of money. Our companies were very upset. These companies are great companies. All of them. But they weren't exactly happy with it. But we're allowing that because that wasn't national security. We're allowing them to sell. But we agreed to leave that till the end. Huawei is a complicated situation. We agreed to leave that. We're leaving Huawei toward the end. We're going to see. We'll see where we go with the trade agreement. Yes, please.
Thank you. I have a question about the border, but I just wanted to follow up quickly on the question about busing. Do you see it as a viable way of integrating schools? Does that relate to the policy that you're
Well,
going
it
to
has been
unveil?
something that they've done for a long period of time. I mean, there aren't that many ways you're going to get people to schools. So this is something that's been done. In some cases, it's been done with a hammer instead of a velvet glove, and that's part of it. But this has been certainly a thing that's been used over there. I think if Vice President Biden had answered the question somewhat differently, it would have been a different result, because they really did hit him hard on that one. So, but it is certainly a primary method of getting people to schools.
And does it relate to the policy that you're going to unveil that you just floated?
It relates to everything we're doing, and you'll be hearing about it over the next couple of months.
Over the next couple of months? Okay. And I want to ask you about the border. It seems like there's officially a week to go until the ICE raids begin under that deadline that you imposed.
Yeah.
Given that you have a July 4th recess, is it realistic to think that you're going to get a deal to actually reform the asylum laws?
No, because we could do it I say to people, I used to say 45 minutes, I say 15, but we could do it quickly. We could do it in a day, we could do it in an hour. We could reform asylum very quickly. We could get rid of the loopholes very quickly. These are horrible loopholes. And the reason that Mexico is so good, because they do have very, very tough immigration. They don't have the kind of things and the kind of stupidity that we have. I mean, where somebody touches 1 foot on our sand and we now have to bring them into a court. We then have to register them. We then have to catch and release them. And they go and they live in our country. And then they're supposed to come back in 3 years for a court case. And about 2% come back, as you know. I mean, you know it just as well as anybody, I really think. Maybe better than most. But the fact is they come back, but nobody comes back. 2% come back. It's a horrible system. Now, what we're doing is they come in illegally, and we're bringing them out legally. But at the request of some, very good Democrats, they asked me if I could hold it, and I did for a couple of weeks, and we have a week left. But other than the fact that we did get, in a very bipartisan way, and I appreciate Speaker Pelosi, because she really worked with us. It was humanitarian money. I mean, they didn't have any money. And we're running, don't forget, nobody's ever had this problem before. We're running hospitals. We're running so many different things for the kids. And the kids are brought up because under the laws, the kids are legally used to get other people to come in. If you have a child, it's much easier to come into our country. It's easy anyway, but if you have a child, it's much easier. So we have these kids who have been absolutely abused, horribly abused, and we could stop that with a minor change in the law. It's a terrible thing that they're not doing it. So here's what's happening. So I said, all right, let's see if you could give that to us. Now, in the meantime, we just got it approved last night, so we have the $4.5 billion in humanitarian aid, right? And that's good, so we have that. But we can have that number go way down if we stop people from coming up. For instance, if we had walls up and if we had it hard, the father and the beautiful daughter who drowned, and, the Rio Grande's are very tough. That has moments where it can be very calm, and then all of a sudden it becomes totally violent and people get swept away. But if they thought it was hard to get in, they wouldn't be coming up. They wouldn't be coming up. And so many lives would be saved. So essentially, if they would change the laws, and I said it would take us an hour, but let's give you 2 weeks. At the end of the second week, we'll be removing people, legally removing. In other
So
words,
you're still planning for that deadline? That deadline is still in place,
oh yeah,
which is now a week from
unless
now.
we do something pretty miraculous. But the Democrats, it seems to me, they want to have open borders, and for the life of me, I cannot figure that out. It's one thing because I want people to come into our country. We need them because we have all these companies coming in. We have Foxconn in Wisconsin. We have so many companies coming in, auto companies. Just today, I was with President Abe. He told me another auto company is going to build a big plant. They need people. So I'm all for that. The only problem is that they have to come in through a process. They have to come in legally. It's also very unfair. You have millions of people online for years trying to get into a country. They take tests. They study. They know a lot about our country. They read. They do it. They have to go through a very complicated process. And these people have worked hard. They've been online for 7, 8, 9 years, and then somebody walks in and they're, welcome to the United States. It's really, honestly, it's very unfair. But yeah, we will be removing large numbers of people. People have to understand, yes, the laws are...
In a week.
Yeah, starting in a week after, it's sometime after July 4th.
So the deal that was just passed does nothing to make you
Well,
want
that's
to
different.
step
That's
back
humanitarian.
from
No,
that
that's a different. That's humanitarian. We needed that just to take care of, because we're running now hospitals. I mean, the Border Patrol, these are incredible people. They're doing what they, nobody ever thought they were going to be doing this. And people are coming up. The reason people are coming up is because we're doing so well as a country. In past years, we weren't doing well. In past years, Mexico was doing better. They took 32% of our car business. They were doing better than we were doing in the past. Now we're the hot country in the world, and people are coming up because they want a piece of that action. And the other reason children are coming up is because we had a separation policy, okay, under President Obama. We had separation. President Obama built those cells. They were in 2014. They were built. They all said, oh, look how horrible. Then it turned out that it was built by President Obama. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming him. I just say this. They had a separation policy, right? I ended it. But when I ended it, I put out a statement. I think it's going to bring more children up because you're ending it. You're saying now the child can stay with the parent. So I said, ending it is nice in one way, but in terms of what we're doing, it makes it even tougher. But the really bad thing is the cartels, and I really think that Mexico, because, they did 6,000, now they're doing 16,000 on our border. I think that Mexico is looking to swamp the cartels, and those kind of numbers will do it. It would be a great thing. What Mexico is doing for us is great. By the way, without the tariffs, they wouldn't have done it, folks. We've been after them for many years to do it. But they have really, so far, it's only a week, the numbers are way down. And so far, a lot of good things have happened. Yes, sir, please. Yes, please, in the second row.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions about
Would you like
Iran.
me to leave now? Or here's the thing. I can stay. We can do this
Just wait
for
one
a long
more.
time. My only problem is this. I don't need stories. He stayed up there too long. If I stay up there quickly, they say, why did he not give us more time? If I stay up for 2 hours, they'll say, he stayed up too long. I mean, if you promise you're not going to say, I say, because everybody's got a hand up, and if you want, I'll go on. Should I go on or should I not go on? What do you think?
At least one more.
And you're not going to say he went on too long.
At least
Because
one
we
more.
have time. I have a flight that actually leaves pretty much when I want it to. Okay, let's go.
Anyway, thank you, Mr. President. Two questions about Iran. A week ago, you called off a strike because you were concerned it would kill Iranians.
Disproportionately, absolutely.
Disproportionately. Did the military leaders provide you with any alternative, that there was some derelict oil rig that could have been hit?
No.
to make
Oh,
the
I had
point?
many alternatives. Oh, yeah, I bet I have 50 alternatives. I have many alternatives, yeah.
And-
I mean, you don't know what the sites were. You said oil rig. You don't know what the sites were. But I had many alternatives. No, the military leaders did a great job. When we chose and designated certain areas that we were thinking about, I said, how many people are going to die? I mean, I'm talking about on the other side. That means a lot to me, too. Okay? How many people are going to die? They said probably about 150. You don't know. Could be much worse than that. Could be less, too, I guess. But it could be much more than that because this is heavy stuff going in. And we would have been 100%. We have the greatest military in the world. I deal with them all the time. These people are incredible people, lethal. And hopefully we don't have to use it much. I mean, we've spent, you look at the numbers, $716 billion this year. We had planes that were so old. So now we have brand new F-35s. We have brand new Super Hornets and F-18s. And I mean, the equipment we have is incredible. The Army now has beautiful new things. Everything is, we have a military that's really great. Hopefully, we don't have to use it very much. But no, they came in, they said this, and I asked them a question, and they came back a short time later, and they said about 150 people. I said, that's really disproportionate. I don't like it.
My second question is that here at the G20 summit, what can you tell us? Has the ball been moved in any particular direction towards easing the tensions with Iran in some of the meetings that you've had?
Well, I've had a lot of countries come up to me. France has come up. If you look at President Macron, good guy, he came up to me and said, I do a lot of business, meaning France does a lot of business with Iran. I'd love to go see them. I said, it's all right. Anybody can see them. I don't mind talking. I think talking's great. I'm not going to say, oh, don't talk to him, don't talk to him. I do think John Kerry should not have been talking to him. I think that's delaying this process a lot. I think he violated the Logan Act, actually. But I think John Kerry speaking to Iran a lot, maybe saying things like, gee, you know, if you wait another 15 months, maybe Trump will lose the election, and then you can deal with a person that's a lot easier than Trump. You'll deal with a stiff that'll give you everything you want. And that makes it a little tougher for me to make a deal, but that's okay. Yeah, please, go.
Mr. President, during the week you tweeted out your displeasure with the Supreme Court's decision on the census, and you suggested you may seek to delay.
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate.
Are you in fact going to try to delay the
Well,
census?
we're looking at that legally because they're asking us to do a census. And, you know, the census was shocking to me. I figured it would be, you know, not expensive to do a census. It's billions of dollars. You know that, right? Billions. Billions. They go knock on doors of every house in the country, and they get everything. They're not allowed to ask whether or not somebody's a citizen of the United States. How horrible and ridiculous is that? So we are looking at that, yeah, sure.
Do you know if you
because
have
it
the legal
wasn't
authority to do
a real decision that, boom, this is the way it is. It was like, now, right now. It depends on what happens, I guess. It was a very strange decision. It was a very, very sad decision. Not in terms of voting, not in terms, just a very sad, because it was so convoluted. It was, to get to that decision, had to be very, very hard.
Well, the justice said that your guys were playing politics and deciding not to count nonsense.
Hey, who's really playing politics, okay? Check it out. You tell me who's playing politics. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Mr. President. I think I heard you mention earlier, Jeff Earl with Daily Mail. It's been a while. I think I heard you mention that with Vladimir Putin, you had said you spoke about election interference privately as well. Did you speak to him in a sterner tone? Did you tell him there would be serious
we
consequences?
talked about it. Hey, we talked about it. You know, we've talked about it before. You know, he denies it totally, by the way. Just, I mean, how many times can you get somebody to deny something? But he has in the past denied it. He's denied it also publicly. But we talked about it. We talked about a lot of other things. I tell you, we talked about something that I think is very important, and that's putting a cap on what he's buying and we're buying from a nuclear standpoint and other arms control. We talked a lot about arms control, and I think he'd like to see arms control, and so would we. I think it makes a lot of sense.
What was the context in which?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you raise what was in the Mueller report? Did you sort of articulate to him?
Well, the Mueller report was a very good
happened?
report. I mean, it was a good report. I had 18 people that hated me. I had Mueller, who was totally conflicted and obviously didn't like me. He was totally conflicted, and yet no obstruction, no collusion, and you know that was a good report. Yes, please. And you know the Democrats want a do-over or 5. They want to get it right. They're working to get it right. They want a do-over or 5. Yes, please.
Edward Zalwood, True News. President Trump, your administration just unveiled the economic portion of the deal of the century. My question to you is, why were no Palestinians members of the White House Peace Plan Committee?
Well, they are a very important part of it, but they don't really have to be. We're just getting started. We have, and as you know, we have a very good David Friedman, a great gentleman, one of the most successful lawyers in New York, who loves Israel. David Friedman. Jason Greenblatt, who worked for me and my company, great lawyer, great talent. Jared Kushner. And with me being president, if you don't get that deal done, it'll never happen. We'll have to see what happens. But I think the Palestinians, basically, I'm not sure. I know they want to make a deal, but they want to be a little bit cute, and that's okay. I fully understand where they're coming from. As you know, I've ended the money to, we were paying them $550 million a year. And I ended that money because a year ago I heard they were saying nasty things. I said, wait a minute, we're trying to make a deal, we're trying to help them, and they're saying these nasty things, we're not going to pay. Now, if a deal is made, we would go back on a humanitarian basis, not so different from the border, because you see the problems and what's going on. It's terrible. But I think we have a very good chance of making a deal, and a lot of people think that's probably the toughest deal of all, and it may very well be the toughest deal of all. A lot of people think it can't be made. I mean, over the years, a lot of people would say that's a deal that can't be made no matter what. But, you know, hey, I like to, we're going to try. But I really believe that I went to other negotiators from past years, for many, many years they've been trying to make this deal. And I said, did you ever take the money away? Because they were always very hostile. And they said, no, we wouldn't do that. That's inappropriate. Why is it inappropriate? I mean, they're saying bad things. Why is it inappropriate? And what I've done is said, look, if you're not negotiating and if you don't want to help make peace, we're not going to pay you. So let's see what happens. I think they want to make a deal. And I've had a very good relationship with some of their leaders. And obviously, I've had a good relationship with Israel. Now, the transaction was thrown up in the air a little bit because of what happened with Bibi Netanyahu's election. They thought he won, and then all of a sudden they couldn't put together the coalition, and now they're back to campaigning again. So that was something that came up that who would have expected that? Maybe something will happen faster, but, you know, that's going to be going on for about 3 months. There's a good chance we can, there's a chance. I don't want to even say good chance on that one because people say it's the hardest deal. I've heard when I was young, I'd say, what do you think of this? Oh, that's tougher than Israel and the Palestinians making it. They used to use that as like the metaphor. They used to use that as the excuse for a deal that was very tough to make. So it's probably about the toughest deal to make. I actually think that there's a good chance. Yes, sir, please, go ahead. Yeah, white shirt. No, the gentleman behind you. Yeah, okay, go ahead. We'll get you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. That's the man I'm looking at.
Dimitri Sevastopoulos, Financial Times. Can I just ask first one clarification?
Sure.
Are you saying you're taking Huawei off the Commerce Department
not at all.
entity
No,
list?
we're going to be talking about Huawei, but we are going to be supplying equipment from our companies. Our companies make billions and billions of dollars worth of equipment, but we are not discussing Huawei with President Xi yet. I want to see, before we start getting into that, I want to see where we end up. We have to, we have a national security problem, which to me is paramount, very important.
But are you taking Huawei off the Commerce Department entity list?
We're talking about that. We have a meeting on that tomorrow or Tuesday.
Okay. And my question is, you talk a lot about the economic and the trade practices of China. You're very critical. You don't talk so much about the national security concerns about China.
Well,
what do you worry about China?
That goes without, I think that goes without saying. I mean, look what I've done. Look who's done what I've done. I took ZTE off, if you remember. I was the one. I did that. That was a personal deal. And then President Xi called me, and he asked me for a personal favor, which I consider to be very important. He's a leader of a major country, and it was very important to him, having to do with where the employees are located and his relationship to that area. And it was 85,000 employees, and they were almost out of business. And he agreed to pay $1.2 billion penalty and some other things, including a board change and including some management changes, et cetera. The ZTE, which is much smaller than Huawei, but it's very big. And they paid us $1.2 billion. I mean, part of the problem is then the Democrats go out and say, if I got $200 trillion, they'd say, this was terrible, what a terrible deal. Because that's the way politics is. It's sort of sad. But, you know, we got $1.2 billion, and we closed it, we opened it. And we had certain changes made, as you know. They made changes to the board. They changed the board. They made management changes. And they paid a lot of money, and they also have to buy American product. Buying American product is very important to me. It's a big thing.
But can I just ask you to clarify?
Yeah, go ahead, blue shirt.
Stefan Niemann with ARD.
Are we going to continue onward?
Yeah.
Yes? Does anybody say no?
No.
Huh?
Thank you, Stefan Niemann with ARD German Television. One question.
We just left Angela.
I know.
She's another friend of mine. People don't think so.
Her a fantastic
we have
woman.
a great relationship. I hope you know that. We spent a lot of time together too.
You praised this G20 summit as extremely successful, yet it was a G19 against one summit if we look at climate change. Why is it that you still think ignoring the dangers of climate change is in the interest of the Americans?
I don't ignore it. So we have the best numbers that we've ever had recently. And I'm not looking to put our companies out of business. I'm not looking to create a standard that is so high that we're going to lose 20, 25% of our production I'm not willing to do that. We have the cleanest water we've ever had. We have the cleanest air. You saw the reports come out recently. We have the cleanest air we've ever had. But I'm not willing to sacrifice the tremendous power of what we've built up over a long period of time and what I've enhanced and revived. I'm just not willing to do that. And they understand where I stand. And, I'm not necessarily sure I agree. I can tell you I'm not sure that I agree with certain countries, what they're doing, because I think they're losing a lot of the power of what they can do with factories and I'm not talking about political power, although that comes with it. I'm talking about the powering of a plant. It doesn't always work with a windmill. When the wind goes off, the plant isn't working. It doesn't always work with solar because solar is just not strong enough. And a lot of them want to go to wind, which has caused a lot of problems. And, the problem with wind is the United States, we're subsidizing these wind towers all over the place because wind doesn't work, for the most part, doesn't work without subsidy. And I don't want to be subsidizing things that don't have to be subsidized. The United States is paying tremendous amounts of money on subsidies for wind. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want to do that. We'll take a few more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. 2 questions on Iran, please.
One.
1 question on Iran. Okay. Well, Iran.
Pick the better one, please.
Will do, sir. Iran says that it will be on the verge of violating the threshold for uranium enrichment in the JCPOA as soon as potentially next week. What will be your response when that happens?
You'll see.
Okay. Can I have a follow-up?
That's all I can do. That's all I can do. No, but that's all I can do. I can only say you'll see. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. Just can't do it. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Celia Mendoza from VOA Latin America. You met yesterday with President Putin, and the readout says that you touched the subject of Venezuela.
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit of what was said during the meeting about Venezuela? And also...
well, first of all, we're following Venezuela very closely. It's a catastrophe. It's what socialism can do. I use it all the time. I mean, it's what socialism can do. It was one of the richest countries 20 years ago. It's got among the largest oil reserves in the world. And they don't have food. They don't have water. It's really actually incredible. I've discussed it with almost every leader this weekend. We discussed Venezuela because we don't ever want that to happen to us or their countries. Okay, go ahead.
You mentioned that change of regime takes time, and then in Venezuela it has
Oh, sure, it takes time.
But do you think that is a possibility?
The problem is so many people are leaving Venezuela. It's like going to be a ghost town. It's a very bad thing that's happening in Venezuela. Nobody's seen anything quite like it, actually, especially from the standpoint that they were so wealthy. They've gone, I know so many people from Venezuela living in Miami. They're incredible people. They're incredible. A lot of them live in Doral, Miami. They call it Little Venezuela. I know them so well. These are people that are hard workers, warm. They're just incredible. And to see what's happening to Venezuela is heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking.
President, do you think that it is a time for change the strategy? And do you still believe that Juan Guaido is the person to lead the country? You have back him up?
Sure. You have a lot of strategies. I have 5 different strategies. I could change any moment. But in the meantime, we're helping them from the standpoint of aid. We're getting as much aid as we can. I think they're making a big mistake because they're not making the aid very easy, as you know. They're not making it easy to get to people. But people are starving to death, and their water, they have no water. They have no water. They have oil, but they don't have any water. No, we have a lot of things in store if we have to do that. We don't want to do anything, but we don't want to get involved to the extent that you may be thinking. But we have a lot of alternatives. We have 5 different alternatives for Venezuela, and we'll see what happens. It's doing very poorly, and Maduro is doing very poorly. Obviously, it's not. It's just not working. Just not working. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I just wanted to.
So, from where are you?
Politico. Anita Kumar, Politico. I just wanted to follow up on the questions that were asked, that Jim asked about.
Question
about the Crown Prince that you met with earlier today. I didn't hear you answer the question. Did you raise the killing of Jamal Khashoggi with him, and what was the response?
I asked him what was happening, and he was telling me that, I think he said 13, but it could be more, and I think he said more in the works, that there are large numbers of people being prosecuted. He's very angry about it. He's very unhappy about it. And I did mention it to him very strongly, and he answered very strongly, but they're prosecuting large numbers of people. That was a bad event.
And sir,
Okay,
can I just
go
follow?
ahead,
Sir, can I just follow up? You mentioned that the intelligence you mentioned that no one had pointed the finger at him, but actually the CIA did, the intelligence communities.
I cannot comment on intelligence community. I'm not. Probably, I guess I'm allowed to do what I want to do in terms of that, right? We can declassify, unlike Hillary Clinton. She decided to just give it out. We can declassify. The truth is that I just don't want to talk about intelligence, but I will say this. A lot of people are being prosecuted, and they're taking it very seriously over there. And they've done a great job in Saudi Arabia from the standpoint of women, and from a lot of different things are happening in Saudi Arabia. One of the other things very important with Saudi Arabia, that not only are they an ally, not only have they spent tremendous amounts of money coming into our country, and they have been a good ally, and they have actually bought tremendous amounts of military equipment that we use and that we're able to use. But they're also very much now changed their ways as to financing terror, which I can't say for a lot of other countries. If you look at Iran, if you look at other countries in that area, they're financing terror. Now, it's harder for Iran because Iran doesn't have the money they used to have. And they were given $150 billion. They were given $1.8 billion in cash. But Saudi Arabia's come a long way. I'll tell you, in terms of reform, Saudi Arabia really has come a long way. Yeah, please, in the gold. Yeah, you, right.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm Zhang Qi with China's Caixin Media Business News Organization in China. Just a little bit follow up on Huawei. You say you're going to discuss Huawei's entity listing soon. Would you say it's a possibility that Huawei is going to be removed from the list?
Is it going to what?
Removed from the entity list.
I don't want to talk about it now. I mean, we're looking at that very carefully. Huawei is very much in play in terms of our country and in terms of intelligence and the intelligence community. We know a lot about Huawei, but I don't want to mention that right now. I just think it's inappropriate. I will say that we're not making it, other than what I told you already, we're not making it a big subject. We're going to save that for later.
Okay. And another question on the big picture of U.S.-China relations. What do you think U.S. and China should see each other? Are we strategic partners? Are we competitors? Are we enemies? What are we?
No, I think we're going to be
Thank you.
strategic partners. I think we can help each other. I think in the end we can help. If the right deal is structured, we can be great for each other. If China would open up, you're opening up a tremendous, the largest market in the world. And right now China's not open to the United States, but we're open to China. That should have never really been allowed to happen. Okay. Yes, please, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Russia, are you planning to go to Moscow next spring as President Putin invited you? And
Yes.
do you agree with him that Western-style liberalism, as it's been defined over the post-war period, is now obsolete and no longer relevant to today's world?
Well, I haven't heard him say that, but he did invite me to Russia for the defeat of Nazis. That's a big thing, defeat of Nazis. Russia lost, he said, 25 million people. I had actually heard 50 million people, but he said yesterday that Russia fighting the Nazis, they lost 25 million people. You would know better than anybody, Peter. But it was a tremendous, they suffered greatly. And they're having a 75th, you could really say, celebration of the defeat of the Nazis. And he invited me, and I said I would give it very serious consideration. That was Russia went through a lot. They lost, I guess, far more than anybody fighting the Nazis in terms of people. And he did invite me, and I said we would get back, but we will give that very serious consideration.
His
Okay?
comments
Thank you, Peter.
to the Financial Times right before arriving here was that Western-style liberalism is obsolete. I know you probably haven't read the interview.
Well, again,
Do you
he
think
may
that's
feel
true?
that way. I mean, he sees what's going on, and I guess if you look at what's happening in Los Angeles, where it's so sad to look, and what's happening in San Francisco and a couple of other cities, which are run by an extraordinary group of liberal people. I don't know what they're thinking, but he does see things that are happening in the United States that would probably preclude him from saying how wonderful it is. At the same time, he congratulated me, as every other leader of every country did, for what we've done economically, because we probably have the strongest economy we've ever had, and that's a real positive. But I'm very embarrassed by what I see in some of our cities, where the politicians are either afraid to do something about it, or they think it's votes, or I don't know what, Peter, I don't know what they're thinking. But when you look at Los Angeles, when you look at San Francisco, when you look at some of the other cities, and not a lot, but you don't want it to spread. And at a certain point, I think the federal government maybe has to get involved. We can't let that continue to happen to our cities. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll see some of you in South Korea, maybe at the DMZ, but this has been an honor. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, thank you very much. That's so nice. That means you like us, and we like you. And it has been a great period of time for our two countries. I want to thank you, Ambassador Harris. We put you here recently because we thought it might be a spot where we need somebody with great talent, and you've displayed that in our military for many years. We really appreciate it very much. Thank you, Ambassador. You've led this embassy with outstanding vision and skill, and we deeply appreciate your efforts. And I tell you, many of the business people that I've met in this incredible country have told me very strongly that what we did with the ambassador, that was just a tremendous move. And, you know, we're talking about certain things. You probably have heard the things we're talking about. And we're going to make a visit today to the DMZ, because long-standing visit with President Moon, and I just want to see how that's looking. And a lot of good things are happening with North Korea. I really believe that. A lot of good things. Relationship is very good. When I first came here, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. In my opinion, had President Obama or somebody like President Obama, for instance, my opponent in the last election, had it worked that way, I honestly believe you would have been at war with North Korea. I've said it loud and I've said it clear. And right now, as you know, we have no nuclear tests. We have no ballistic tests. We have gotten our hostages, our prisoners back, which we really appreciated, from Kim Jong-un, Chairman Kim. The remains are coming back as they get them, as they find them. The remains of our great heroes from the war. And we really appreciate that. And there's a good feeling. There's a good relationship. And, you know, I won't even say developing. I mean, I just think we have a very good relationship. The two of us. I don't know about beyond the two of us, but I can say the two of us. So we'll see how it all goes. And again, I'm going to the DMZ, and I understand that they want to meet, and I'd love to say hello. It's going to be very short, but we are in territory that's very close. We don't have to take long trips to countries, so it's good for both of us. Let's see what happens. They're trying to work it out. Not so easy. I'm delighted to return to the beautiful city of Seoul, incredible city, this week for my second visit to South Korea as president. That's a lot when you think about it. Haven't been president very long. 2.5 years, how time flies. Today, it's my distinct honor to join this very talented group of leaders, many of whom I recognize. I don't know all of you. I know some of you, but I recognize most of you. Great leaders, great business people. You're a talented group, and you're from America and South Korea, companies to discuss the critical economic relationship between the United States and South Korea. My thanks as well to Secretary Mnuchin and Secretary of State we call them sometimes the Undersecretary of States have tremendous, where is he? Where is our Undersecretary of State? Good. Congratulations. Great job. You're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much for being here. And if you have any questions later, Keith, come see me, because there could be plenty of questions, but they're very happy with the job you're doing. Thank you very much. And the job that our Secretary of State is doing is fantastic, Mike Pompeo. For decades, the U.S.-South Korea alliance has advanced peace and security in this region and far beyond. Today, our partnership is stronger than ever before. Following this event, I'll meet with President Moon to discuss many shared priorities, including enhancing our already robust economic ties. The United States is having probably the best economy we've ever had. We're doing phenomenally. Many companies, including South Korea, but many companies are coming into the United States from other places throughout the world. Car companies in particular, they're going to Michigan, they're going to Ohio and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, Florida. Over the past few days, President Moon and I have been in Osaka, Japan, for the G20 summit. And I have to say that Prime Minister Abe did a fantastic job. It was a great summit. A lot of good spirit, a lot of goodwill. And that brings really, very importantly, the world leaders together, each to discuss some of the most important economic opportunities and challenges facing our nations. And one-on-ones are very important when you have individual complaints. I'm sure most of you haven't heard, but I met with President Xi of China. I know you didn't hear about that. But we had actually a very good meeting, a really good meeting, I think. So we're continuing with our discussions on a trade deal. We'll see what happens. Good chance. During the summit, I shared the pro-growth policies that have helped the United States achieve extraordinary economic success and called on all G20 members to cooperate based on the principles of fairness and reciprocity. Such an important word. Maybe my favorite word of all is reciprocity. The United States and South Korea have made great progress in reducing our trade imbalance and unleashing new prosperity for both of our countries. And as you heard your great ambassador and our great ambassador say, we've reduced the number by about 60%, which is pretty great. Good for both countries, actually. Last year, we reduced the trade deficits of goods between the United States and South Korea by more than 20%, and that number is moving very rapidly along. And we announced a totally renegotiated United States-Korea trade deal, which went into effect this last January 1st. And that was something that looked like it wasn't going to be happening, and we got it done. Good for both countries. Our upgraded agreement will benefit workers in both the United States and South Korea and include strong provisions to increase South Korea's access to the finest American-made products, including automobiles, agricultural crops, medicines, and more. Under the terms of this deal, South Korea will double the number of American cars that can enter the market each year. So the car companies are very happy with it, and it gets to be just much more fair. We must remain vigilant and ensure that we keep moving forward toward a more balanced trade relationship and further reduce our trade deficit. Our countries also enjoy a thriving investment relationship. Since 2017, Korean investment in the United States has expanded by billions and billions of dollars. This includes Lotte Group's recent investment of $3.1 billion in Louisiana. And Chairman Shin Dong-bin, I think he's here. There you are. Such a young man. Look at that, to have done such a good job. It's incredible. How did you do that? Would you get up here, please, and speak? Beautiful job. Thank you very much. Fantastic job. We appreciate it. And we have a great working relationship. Your investment of $3.1 billion in Louisiana is going to be a great investment. You know that. So congratulations. Thank you very much for being here. Korean Air and Boeing have also recently announced that Korean Air will acquire 30 brand new 787s, a great plane, Dreamliner, a deal worth over $9 billion. And Ki Hong-woo, where are you? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. From Korean Air is here, and you've done a great job with Korean Air. Congratulations, really great. And Eric John, president of Boeing Korea. Where's Eric? Thank you, Eric. Good job. Good. Thank you. Great plane. Thank you both for being here, and congratulations. Hyundai, Samsung, and CJ Dosan, and SK Group all here this morning. They're all here represented by their top people, and I really appreciate it. They've made very large investments in our country, including the companies represented in the room. They've created more than 50,000 brand new jobs in the United States. We have to tell that to the people of the United States. And it's very important to tell them. There's a lot of investment going back into the United States. And we hope that you'll continue to expand. Could I ask you all to stand up, the three folks? Hyundai, Samsung, CJ, and SK. Where's SK? Thank you very much. Congratulations. It's a great job. I recognize all four of you, I must tell you, very, very famous business leaders and very great business leaders. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll see you later. There's never been a better time to invest or do business and create jobs in America. We passed the largest tax cut and reform in the history of our country and eliminated more than 30,000 pages of job-killing regulations, a record. You don't have any regulation problem, I know, in South Korea, do you? You have any? We slashed our business tax rate from the highest in the developed world to one of the most competitive anywhere in the developed world. We were so high that it was very hard for people to really understand how they could do it. We've taken back hundreds of billions of dollars from overseas. We weren't allowed to take that. That money was just, it was impossible to do, both bureaucratically and tax-wise. It was so expensive. Now we're bringing in, Apple alone brought in $230 billion, and they're spending it in the United States. Capital investment by businesses now can be 100% tax deductible, something that nobody knew. And if you look, the one-year provision is something that nobody thought was deducting expense in the first year, something nobody thought they'd ever see, and it's had a tremendous impact on the country. Unemployment in the United States is at the lowest level it's been in 51 years. And we expect that that number is even going to get better because there's tremendous companies are moving in. We have companies moving in, car companies moving in particular car companies. We hadn't had a plant built in years and decades, actually. And now we have many plants being built all throughout the United States, cars. According to the World Economic Forum, our financial system, business, dynamism, and labor market all rank #1 in the world. That's a great rank. And we were slipping badly, as you know. In fact, I just opened a LNG plant in Louisiana. It's a $10 billion plant, and I think a couple of the folks in this room happen to be involved in that, but we also had tremendous Japanese investment. It's a $10 billion. It's going to employ 10,000 jobs. It's, I guess, one of the biggest plants I've ever seen, and right in Louisiana also. And they opened it. I hear it's doing phenomenally well. It was beautiful. It was built on time, on budget, but it was held up for many, many years, for more than a decade, because they couldn't get the permits. And I got in. I got them those permits. I didn't know anybody. I don't want to know anybody. All I wanted to do is I wanted to have them build that plant. And we got them the permits very quickly through EPA and all of the other places that we had to get them, but that was being held up. It looked actually like it wasn't going to happen. And I got it done. You look at Keystone Pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline, they were dead. They were really in trouble. Dakota Access had the worst of all worlds. It had built the pipeline, but it couldn't connect it, okay? Because they had environmental problems, false environmental problems, problems that shouldn't have been a problem, but they had built it. And I was actually going to say, maybe the country should have a piece of the action. Steve, we could have said, listen, give us half of the profits for the rest, and we're going to give you that final permit, right? I could have done that. We can't revert back to my business days. Can't do that. But we got it approved for them. We got the permits, and they were able to connect, and they immediately opened. And the Keystone, as you know, is one of the biggest anywhere, and that's been under consideration for a long time. And we got it approved in my first few days in office. The head of the big company, the pipeline company, they're actually based in Canada, which a little saddens me, but we have a very good relationship with Canada. We just made a deal with Canada and Mexico, which is a tremendous trade deal, and hopefully we'll get that passed soon in Congress. But the head probably said, gee, I couldn't get it for years and years. I couldn't get my permit. Now Trump gets elected, I get my permit. And you people as great businessmen know what's going to happen. He's sitting there, and he will be inundated now with every consultant that worked on the project for the last 10 years, and they're all going to want these massive fees. They're going to want millions of dollars because they're going to say that they did such a good job. But I never spoke to any of them. I don't want to speak to any of them. They didn't do a damn thing, and they're going to get millions of dollars, right? And everyone in this room knows what I'm talking about. But it's one of those things. We don't want to have that situation happen. But we got Keystone approved. We got it approved early. And going to be a tremendous pipeline. Economic growth is now over 3%. And for the first quarter, which is always our worst quarter, it's always down around 1, less than 1. It was 3.2%, which is shocking. We are taking in tremendous dollars from China with the tariffs of goods, $250 billion at 25%. That will remain under our deal until we have a new deal, and then we'll see what happens, whether it's more or less or whatever. We'll see what happens. We were very close to having a deal with China. And then, unfortunately, things happened, and the deal didn't happen. But we're now back on track, so we'll see what happens now. We started it up. We had a very good meeting. We really had a great meeting yesterday. And I like President Xi a lot. I consider him a friend, but I like him a lot. I've gotten to know him very well. He's a strong gentleman, right? Anybody that is a strong guy, tough guy, very smart, and loves China. And I love the United States. All of this is just the beginning to really I just wanted to have a group of the leaders. I didn't know they were going to get, you're not just South Korean leaders, you're world-renowned leaders. You have done things that are incredible. I mean, some of the companies. I happened to fly over a building. It was one of the largest buildings I've ever seen. Samsung was one of the largest buildings I've ever seen. And it was a manufacturing building. And you know what I'm talking about, right? I looked, I said, what the hell is that? It was acre on acre, except it was piled up. How tall is that building? Like 12 or 10 stories?
Next time you come to Korea.
I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to get some ideas, because this was laid up on top. We usually just go in one direction. It was really great. And I must tell you also, I said, what is that beautiful building? And that was your great tower. Latte Tower was beautiful. Loved the design. I said, it's pretty, hard to miss it, right? We're flying in. It wasn't like, oh, gee, what's that? But I knew immediately. I knew it from even pictures. But that's a beautiful tower, and I know it's done very well. Congratulations. Beautiful job. It's nice to build them nice, right? It doesn't cost that much more. I try to explain to friends of mine. I have a competitor in New York, and he builds very inexpensively, and then he wonders why we get higher rents and why we get higher condo prices. And I look at his building. He said, what the hell's going on? He has windows that are so little because he saves $2. He saves nothing. I mean, sometimes a wall is more expensive than a window. Sometimes brick and mortar is more expensive than glass. So you make them big. You have nice, big, fat windows, and you have certain things. But you folks have done a great job, really great. Thank you very much. But this is all just the beginning. We're going to have a lot of great relationship with South Korea. I think I've done a good job in stability. I can say the ambassador came when he met me at the airport yesterday. He said when he first came here, people were nervous. A lot of bad things were happening. A lot of bad things with missiles flying over Japan. And they weren't too thrilled in Japan either, by the way. And now you don't have that. And people aren't feeling the same way that they felt when I became president. When I became president, it's hard to believe, 2.5 years ago, I became president. And probably the biggest thing was Kim Jong-un and the problems that you were having with them. And a lot of bad things could have happened, could have gone very bad, very fast. And as you know, we took a very tough stand, and so did he. And then all of a sudden, we came together. And I was asking other people, have you ever spoken to him? They said, no. I said, how could you not speak to him? You didn't speak to him. You don't lose anything by speaking. And we did ultimately speak, and we got along great. But it's a lot different now. The ambassador was telling me, he said he got here, and people were very nervous. They were having drills, many, many drills all the time, drills. To get undercover. And you don't have that anymore. So let's see what happens. Nothing's final. Got a long way to go. But this is a situation that could have been really bad. You know, at home they think that I'm sort of a tough warmonger. I'm a warmonger. They thought that when I got elected, within the first year we'd be in World War III. And I'm really the opposite of a warmonger. But we've built our military now. It's stronger than it's ever been, brand new. I mean, we spent if you think, we spent $716 billion this year, $700 billion last year. And this year we're going for actually even more than that, potentially. And we have brand new fighter jets, brand new ships, brand new military equipment for the soldiers, very important. Can never forget that. All brand new. We were very depleted from fighting wars all over, fighting in the Middle East for 19 years in the Middle East, just being there. And we're now, you probably heard, we knocked out the caliphate as soon as I got in. I knocked them out very quickly. Very quickly. Once we started, it was a very quick operation. We have the greatest military in the world. There's nobody close. We have the greatest equipment in the world. Missiles and planes and everything else. The F-35 fighter jet, which is the hot one now. I was talking to one of the pilots. These guys are central casting. There's nobody in Hollywood that looks like these people. With their crew cut, boom, under the eyes, the whole thing. I speak to this guy. I said, how good is the F-35? Very good, sir. How does it compare to so-and-so, another country? Well, they have a basic problem, sir. They can't see it. It can be right next to them. They can't see it. I said, that sounds good. They say it's really hard to win when they can't see the plane. It's really stealth, and it's really great. And by the way, you're ordering those planes in addition to a lot of Boeings, but you're ordering those planes. So I just want to tell you that you're our friend. I've had a tremendous relationship. President Moon has treated me and our country with great respect, which I appreciate, because we're doing a lot for you. We're doing a lot. We're spending a lot of money, and money that hasn't been reimbursed. And they're agreeing to reimburse us for some of this because the cost is astronomical. We have 42,000 soldiers. We've had them for many years. And we're working on that, and it's really working along well. But most importantly, we're doing the job. And you're going to have a very safe country, and it's already a great country. And it's an honor to be with you, especially so many people that I know and that I recognize. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't know there's great business genius. They don't understand what that means, but we understand what business genius is. People say, how come so-and-so is always successful? Because he's a business genius. It's one of those things. It's a talent, just like baseball is a talent or golf is a talent or anything. We had recently the U.S. Women's Open at my course in Bedminster, New Jersey. And I think 9 of the top 10 finishers were from South Korea. Do you know that? 9 of the top 10. I said, what's going on over here? So I want to just thank you. You have a great country, and it's an honor to be with you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. We had some good news. The market hit a all-time high today. The S&P just broke its record, so we're very happy about that. Stock market continues to do well. Jobs have been literally through the roof. And speaking of jobs, we have the USMCA with Canada, with Mexico, and we've come a long way. And it's a great agreement. As you know, Mexico yesterday approved it with a very positive vote, and you're doing very well, I understand, also.
We are.
But it's an honor to have the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. He's been a friend of mine. We've worked hard together. We worked in particular on the USMCA. And we hope to have bipartisan support. I think, Justin, you're going to be making the rounds of Congress later on?
Meeting a few people.
That's a terrific thing, but it's great to have you. So we're going to be talking about that. And generally, we'll be talking trade and other things. And we're then going to have lunch and some meetings. And it's an interesting day, but it'll be like a positive day, I think, like usual. That's the way we want to have it. We want to have very positive days. We only have positive days. So I want to thank you very much, Justin, for coming to the White House.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, please.
Thank you, Donald, for this meeting. It's an opportunity for us, as you say, to keep talking about how we've worked hard to build a great trade deal that's good for Canadian workers, good for American workers, good for Mexican workers as well. We're moving forward on the ratification process, aligned with you. Obviously today as well, on top of the great news in the Canadian and American economies, we're continuing to work on a broad range of global issues. Obviously, there's news today we're going to be talking about as well. But this is just a really great opportunity for us to continue to work and to develop and to build on the closest alliance in the world between Canada and the United States.
Well, this will be the largest trade deal ever made, and it won't even be close. If you take a look at the numbers, second is so far away you don't even call it second. So it's very exciting, and very exciting for Mexico, very exciting for Canada. And I have to also thank the President of Mexico, because he's really been doing a job on the border and a job in Mexico. A lot of very positive things have happened, and the flow has very substantially slowed down. They have 6,000 Mexican troops on their southern border, and it's really been a tremendous difference. I want to thank Mexico and the people of Mexico. Now, this has only been for a short period of time. Our country's been asking for this for 45 years approximately, and they're doing it now, and we very much appreciate that Mexico's doing that. It's going to have a big impact. It's already had a big impact. So with that, I thank you very much, and we're going to get on with our discussions. Thank you. This is the new...
Mr. President, how will you respond?
I was going to say this is the new Air Force One. That's which we ordered, which they've been trying to order for a lot of years. We were able to shave $1.5 billion off the price. When I got here, they were going to spend a lot more money than we spent, and I would say the plane basically is an upgrade over that model. We actually are getting things that they didn't get, and we're saving about $1.5 billion. So it's going to be terrific. It's under construction right now by Boeing. Go ahead. Question? No, Iran made a big mistake. This drone was in international waters. Clearly, we have it all documented. It's documented scientifically, not just words. And they made a very bad mistake.
How will you respond, Mr. President? How will you respond?
You'll find out.
Does that mean you're planning to do something?
You'll find out. You'll find out. I mean, obviously, you know, we're not going to be talking too much about it. You're going to find out. They made a very big mistake.
There are 2 Canadians who are in jail in China right now who are detained, sir.
No concerns. We'll be discussing that. It'll be one of the issues I think we'll be discussing right now with Justin.
Mr. President, the Fed made no change to the interest rate.
Say it?
The Fed made no change to the interest rates, right?
Well, I guess they indicated they're going to be lower. I should have done sooner, but what are you going to do? Can't win them all. He should have done it sooner, but you can't win it all. And eventually he'll do what's right, perhaps. Let's see what he does.
Do you intend to bring up the detained Canadians when you meet with President Xi? Do you intend to bring them up when you meet with
Obviously,
President
we're very concerned about the escalation by Iran recently. We have significant presence in the area, including leading on the NATO mission in Baghdad, in Iraq. We look forward to discussing with our closest ally their perspectives on this and how we can move forward as an international community.
Will you, Mr. President, help Mr. Trudeau get a meeting with Xi Jinping? Will you help Justin Trudeau get a meeting with Xi Jinping at the G20 next week to talk about the thing?
Well, I don't know that he's trying to meet. Are you trying to get a meeting?
We've got a lot of things to discuss.
Well, otherwise, I'll represent him well. I will tell you. We have a meeting set up with President Xi, and it's obviously on the big transaction that we're talking about and negotiating. Our people are actually speaking now. We'll see what happens with that. But anything I can do to help Canada, I will be doing.
Excuse me?
Excuse me?
Are you planning to bring it up with President Xi when you meet with him?
I would, at Justin's request, I will absolutely bring that up.
When USMCA is ratified, sir, will that be the end
Don't
of
say
tariffs?
when.
When it is ratified.
Don't say when, because
If
so
it is
far I have to get the Democrats to approve it, all right? So I like your positive thinking. But if, and the if is really subject to the Democrats, let's see what happens. But I really believe that Nancy Pelosi and the House will approve it. I think the Senate will approve it rapidly. It's going to be very bipartisan. It's great for the farmers, manufacturers. It's really great for everybody. And unions. It's great for unions. I mean, we have tremendous union support, too. It's a tremendous, it really is, it shows a partnership between 3 countries. And it's sort of 3 countries in a trade sense. We're competing with the European Union. We're competing with China. It gives us a bigger dialogue. It gives us a much bigger platform. It's really good for all 3. It's something that's very popular. I hope politically they can do what they have to do. Now, a day after the election, it would win with a tremendous support. But we have an election coming up. But I think Nancy Pelosi is going to do the right thing.
And will that be the end of tariffs on Canada and Mexico?
Well, we'll see. I mean, you know, they have to do what they have to do. We understand that. We can't have big, tremendous shipments of certain products, so we understand that very well.
We were very pleased with the lifting of the tariffs
Yeah.
on steel and aluminum.
They've been lifted, as you know, and there won't be, hopefully, transshipping. If there's transshipping, I'll call Justin, and I'm sure he'll take care of it. And if he doesn't, I'll probably call him a second time, and if he doesn't, then we'll have to talk, right? But I think that that situation's very well taken care of. Very important for both countries and for all three countries, the farmers, very, very important. More so in that case from us and Canada. But the farmers are really happy with it. The manufacturers are very happy. Mexico is thrilled. You saw the vote. It was a very lopsided in a positive way vote, a great vote. And I think it's going to be something very special. Again, it's the largest trade deal by far ever entered into, and we're very close to having it finalized. It means a lot of jobs for our country, a lot of wealth for all three countries, and we're really competing against the world. You know, we're not competing with each other so much. This brings us into a position where we're not competing with each other. We're competing against the world, and that's what we're doing. We're competing against big sections of the world, including Asia and including other areas, and I think it's going to be very special. I think it's going to end up being a very important deal, but the biggest ever made. Okay?
Will you invite the Toronto Raptors to the White House?
Say it?
Will you invite the Toronto Raptors to the White House? I think the Toronto
Well,
Star
we thought
has
about that. That's an interesting question. They played phenomenal basketball. I watched a little bit of it. They were really terrific. Congratulations, by the way. That was a great job by a great team. So we'll think about that. If they'd like to do it, we'll think about that. We have a lot of other folks coming. And the Presidential Medal, I just spoke to him. We're going to be presenting the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Roger Penske. Roger Penske is a great gentleman who has won 18 Indianapolis 500s. He's just won Daytona. He won Daytona, he won Indianapolis, he won probably more than anybody in the history of racing. I can't imagine anybody even being close. But Roger Penske is going to be getting the Medal of Freedom, and he's very thrilled to be getting it, and that'll be announced over the next little while, but I guess actually I'm announcing it pretty much now, but they'll be putting something out. They'll be putting something out in a little while. He's very deserving. He's a great gentleman. I've known him a long time, and a very brilliant guy. When you think of all the countries that want to win Indianapolis and Daytona, and they fight and they spend, even Canada, they spend a lot of money, and and you know, when a man wins Indianapolis, when he wins it 18 times, and he just won the Daytona, and he won many things over the course of years, and he's become a very successful man. We talked about electric cars today. I think nobody knows more about that subject in terms of common sense than Roger Penske. So Roger Penske will be getting and receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Mr. President, you said Iran is a different country. Do you still hold that opinion?
Oh, absolutely. When I came here, Iran was in 14 to 18 different sites of confliction. They were extremely hostile. They were hostile when they signed the deal. They were screaming death to America. And I think probably Iran made a mistake. I would imagine it was a general or somebody that made a mistake in shooting that drone down. And fortunately, that drone was unarmed. It was not, there was no man in it. There was no, it was over international waters, clearly over international waters, but we didn't have a man or woman in the drone. We had nobody in the drone.
Are you still open?
It would have made a big difference, let me tell you. Would have made a big, big difference. But I have a feeling, I may be wrong and I may be right, but I'm right a lot. I have a feeling that it was a mistake made by somebody that shouldn't have been doing what they did. I think they made a mistake. And I'm not just talking about the country made a mistake. I think that somebody under the command of that country made a big
Are you
mistake.
still open to talking to Iran's leadership?
Let's just see what happens. Let's see what happens. It's all going to work out.
Do you feel like there are members of your administration who want
Say
you?
it?
Are you saying you think it wasn't intentional to strike the drone?
I don't know. I find it hard to believe it was intentional, if you want to know the truth. I think that it could have been somebody who was loose and stupid that did it. But we'll be able to report back, and you'll understand exactly what happened. But it was a very foolish move. That I can tell you.
Do you feel like there are members of your administration who are trying to push you into conflict?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, in many cases, it's the opposite. But I will say, look, I said, I want to get out of these endless wars. I campaigned on that. I want to get out. We've been in Afghanistan for 19 years. As you know, we've reduced very substantially in Afghanistan. We beat the caliphate. We took back 100% of the caliphate. When it was 99%, Justin, I said, we're going to get out. We're going to start peeling back. And everybody went crazy because it was 99. So I said, all right, so we'll finish it up. So we got 100%. And we're pulling that back out of Syria. We're pulling a lot of people back. But this is something, this is a new wrinkle. This is a new fly in the ointment, what happened shooting down the drone. And this country will not stand for it. That I can tell you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you. A year ago, you said Trudeau was weak and dishonest. What's changed? Come on, we gotta go.
She was terrific. I heard she was terrific.
All right, thank you. Come on, sir. Thank you, sir.
She was terrific.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. In a few moments, I'll be signing an executive order imposing hard-hitting sanctions on the Supreme Leader of Iran and the Office of the Supreme Leader of Iran and many others. Today's action follows a series of aggressive behaviors by the Iranian regime in recent weeks, including shooting down of U.S. drones. You shot down the drone. I guess everyone saw that one, and many other things. They've done many other things aside from the individual drone. You saw the tankers, and we know of other things that were done also, which were not good and not appropriate. The Supreme Leader of Iran is one who ultimately is responsible for the hostile conduct of the regime. He's respected within his country. His office oversees the regime's most brutal instruments, including the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Sanctions imposed through the executive order that I'm about to sign will deny the Supreme Leader and the Supreme Leader's office and those closely affiliated with him and the office access to key financial resources and support. The assets of Ayatollah Khomeini and his office will not be spared from the sanctions. These measures represent a strong and proportionate response to Iran's increasingly provocative actions. We will continue to increase pressure on Tehran until the regime abandons its dangerous activities and its aspirations, including the pursuit of nuclear weapons, increased enrichment of uranium, development of ballistic missiles, engagement in and support for terrorism, fueling of foreign conflicts, and belligerent acts directed against the United States and its allies. The agreement that was signed was a disaster. It was not doing what it was supposed to do. Many bad things were taking place. And most importantly, it was so short-term that within a very short number of years, they would be able to make nuclear weapons, and that's unacceptable. Never can Iran have a nuclear weapon. Also included in this is we want the stoppage immediately of their sponsoring of terrorism. They sponsor terrorism at a level that nobody's ever seen before. And that's been over the last number of years, and they've taken all of that money that was given to them by the past administration, and much of it was given out to terrorist organizations. In fact, I remember when John Kerry was asked a question about whether or not this money will be spent for terror, he actually said yes, or at least he was referring to some of it, but he said yes, it will be used for terror. If you can believe that, we're giving them money, we're saying yes, it can be used for terror. That was not a good answer. But that was the least of it, frankly. So America is a peace-loving nation. We do not seek conflict with Iran or any other country. I look forward to the day when sanctions can be finally lifted and Iran can become a peaceful, prosperous, and productive nation. That can go very quickly. It can be tomorrow. It can also be in years from now. So I look forward to discussing whatever I have to discuss with anybody that wants to speak. In the meantime, who knows what's going to happen? I can only tell you we cannot ever let Iran have a nuclear weapon, and it won't happen. And secondly, and very importantly, we don't want money going out to sponsor terror. They are the #1 sponsor of terror anywhere in the world. So I'll sign this order right now, and I want to thank our military. I want to thank all of the people that have been working with me over the last number of months on this. I think a lot of restraint has been shown by us, a lot of restraint, and that doesn't mean we're going to show it in the future. But I felt that we want to give this a chance, give it a good chance, because I think Iran potentially has a phenomenal future. And I say that about North Korea too. I've said it about North Korea. I think North Korea has a phenomenal future, and I think Iran also has a phenomenal future. And I think a lot of people would like to see them get to work on that great future. So I'll sign this now, and I appreciate you all being here. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, is your goal to negotiate a deal Mr. President, is your goal to negotiate
We would love to be able to negotiate a deal if they want to. If they don't want to, that's fine too. But we would love to be able to, and frankly, they might as well do it soon. But obviously, the people of Iran are great people. You know, I know many of them. I lived in New York, haven't been there very much the last 2.5 years, but I know many Iranians living in New York, and they're fantastic people. I have many friends that are Iranian, and it's just, it's very sad what's happening to that country. The deal should have never been done. It wasn't ratified by Congress, wasn't properly done, as you know, as a treaty. It wasn't properly done. It was incorrectly done. But we'll get it properly done. So we'll see what happens. I hope it's going to be for the good, but the people in Iran are great people, and all of the people I know, so many in New York, these are great people. Okay, anything else?
Sir, just to be clear, is this the U.S. response to the Iranians shooting down the drone?
You could probably, Steve, add that into it, but basically this is something that was going to happen anyway.
Okay.
If they breach the uranium limits on the 27th, will you take additional action?
I won't say what I'll do, but I don't think they should do it.
What is your message for the Supreme Leader? Do you want to meet with him one-on-one?
My only message is this: he has the potential to have a great country, and quickly, very quickly. And I think they should do that rather than going along this very destructive path. Destructive for everybody. Destructive for everybody. We can't let him have a nuclear weapon. He said he doesn't want nuclear weapons. It's a great thing to say. But a lot of things have been said over the years, and it turns out to be not so. But he said very openly and plainly for everyone to hear that he does not want to have nuclear weapons. So if that's the case, we can do something very quickly. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. We just finished a signing, very important signing, of the Taxpayer First bill, the IRS Taxpayer First, which is a tremendous thing for our citizens having to do with the IRS, streamlines and so many other changes made. So that was just done and signed, and it's been made into law. So we're all set on that, and today I'm signing a bill to deliver $4.6 billion in humanitarian assistance to our southern border. This includes funding for medical care, shelters, and increased housing for minors through the Department of Health and Human Services. And Secretary Azar is here with us, and with our Vice President, and with some of our great congressmen. We appreciate, thank you very much. For many weeks, Democrats were giving us a hard time, but I tell you, it became a bipartisan bill, and we're very happy about it. And now what we want to do is we have to do a bill for border security, and all of this will go away. I want to thank Mexico because Mexico is doing a lot right now. They have almost 20,000 soldiers between the two borders. They have 6,000 on their southern border by Guatemala. And they have about 16,000 at our southern border. And the numbers are way down for the last week because this just took place over the last few days, over the last week, and it's way down, as you can imagine. But we have to do a bill on border security, and we can solve the problem entirely at our border. The wall is being built, but unfortunately we had a very bad case from the Ninth Circuit, as usual. A Ninth Circuit judge, and I say that loud and clear, very hard to win at the Ninth Circuit, if not impossible. He ruled against something that, in my opinion, was a terrible error, and it really affected the construction of part of our wall. Much of it's being built, most of it's being built, but it had an impact. These were contracts that were out, they were being built, and now we're supposed to stop because a judge decided in his own whim that he wanted to stop it. So we appealed it, and we're asking for an expedited appeal. But again, much of the wall is being built. We had it all being built, and the Ninth Circuit, as usual, came through for the other side. And it's an incredible situation we have going. There's something wrong with this, where something like this can happen. It's not a good situation. Anyway, we're asking Congress to step forward on border security and help us with border security. We do that, it's going to be perfect, because the Mexicans have done a fantastic job, and I want to thank the President of Mexico. And they've done this over the last week and a half. It started at the other border, and now it's at our border, and it's had a very big impact. You'll see the numbers come out. You'd probably have to wait 3 or 4 weeks, but you'll see there's a tremendous difference. And most importantly, we must eliminate all incentives for smuggling children and for smuggling women. They're smuggling women through borders, and the borders that don't have the wall, or the borders where you can't physically have security because it's so many miles. You know, we have 2,000 miles of border. So they're smuggling in women, and they're smuggling in children, and they're using the children in particular as pawns for getting other people into our country, because when you're with a child, even if the child's not yours, which in itself is ridiculous, that it's much easier to come across and come into our country because the laws are very bad. Our immigration laws are very bad. And right now, smugglers coach migrants to travel with minors or to send minors alone to gain easy entry into the United States. Catch and release must stop. DHS must have the authority to humanely return minors to be with their families in their home countries. It's right now a situation where nobody knows what they're doing because our laws are so bad, and it can be changed in, I always say 15 minutes, make it an hour. It's very simple. These changes are very simple. There's changes to the asylum. If we change asylum, we can have 75% of it done. The rest has to be done on the loopholes. Vast migrations out of Central America undermine the future of those countries, and these countries now, they want their children back. They're actually wanting their children back. As you know, I stopped hundreds of millions of dollars from going to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador because they haven't been doing what they should be doing. Caravans have been forming, but now the caravans are being stopped by Mexico. And again, we want to thank Mexico, but the caravans that formed are being stopped by Mexico, short of our southern border, and in many cases before they even get out of Guatemala. But I'm hearing that Guatemala is starting to help us a lot. But we're not paying them all of the money. We used to pay them over $500 million a year. I stopped that money from going to them. Some people think it should be the opposite. We should give them money. I don't think they were doing what they could do, and therefore I stopped it. And at some point, maybe if they do a great job in the job they're supposed to, we can be talking. But right now, it's disgraceful what's happening. And Congress and the Democrats have to step forward to provide humane solutions to put child smugglers out of business. You have child smugglers by the hundreds and actually probably by the thousands. And they're becoming very rich because our laws are so bad. They have to restore the integrity of the United States asylum system. Without these changes, more than 1 million immigrants will arrive at the borders this year. Many of them lodging frivolous asylum claims, and that's what they do to gain access into the country. They lodge claims on asylum, and they're totally bogus claims. We apprehend these people, but because of catch and release, we have to apprehend them, take their names, sometimes bring them to court, sometimes they're criminals, oftentimes they have to be released, but they're all coming out of the country because that's what we do. After July 4th, a lot of people are going to be brought back out. So people that come up may be here for a short while, but they're going back to their countries. They go back home. ICE is going to be apprehending them and bringing them back. And we have a very big system for that, and it's been very effective, and it will be very effective. So they may feel, and you may read that they came across, and because of the ridiculous laws of catch and release, which I call not a law, I call it a loophole, you release them, but they go back. They get caught, they come in illegally, and they go out legally. Very simple system. Most border crossers never show up in court. They never come. About 3% show up. Nobody even knows why they show up, but only 3% show up. But we are apprehending them and we bring them out of the country. In some cases, they're criminals, and ideally we want them to use the other country's criminal justice system because we don't want to load up our prisons any more than they're already loaded up. So that's it in a nutshell. It's $4.6 billion. It was bipartisan. It was done in a bipartisan manner. We all got together. This is a humane solution to a tremendous problem that's caused because we have bad immigration laws, and we can solve that problem very, very quickly if we could get together with the Democrats. The problem is the Democrats actually like this system because it's open borders. Now, we don't allow it to be open borders because we're apprehending, and we're doing a great job. Border Patrol has been incredible. Law enforcement's been incredible, and ICE has been incredible. But it shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be this way. We're the only ones in the world that have a system